Yeah, 10 million shillings later, and
Yes.
yeah.
And somebody in court. Yep, but Danson Mushami is claiming that he received a call from Mike Sonko. Mike Sonko has recorded a counter statement saying, No. I haven't.
It was not me.
I find it strange that he also reported this matter 2 days after the alleged threat. I request the police to do a thorough investigation into the allegation.
Right.
Well,
Drama.
Yes, we leave it at the doorstep of the police to do what they do best, investigate.
Yep.
So apparently, according to the front page of the Daily Nation, Echesa saga making things worse for the DP. DP William Ruto has been in a tight spot by the saga revolving around former Cabinet Secretary Rashid Echesa and a fake military procurement deal allegedly sealed in his office. While he struggles to extricate himself from the murky saga, he will be acutely aware that a reputation already tarnished by allegations of rampant corruption has taken another terrible hit. This might raise questions about his suitability for high office and up the ante in the now open feud with President Kenyatta that has divided the ruling Jubilee Party down the middle. There's no bromance, apparently. The president and his deputy are no longer on good terms, and that's not in doubt. After the bromance on show during the first term, things changed on their re-election in 2017, coming to a head following the president's handshake with ODM chief Raila Odinga. And of course, goes into details about that. Basically, what we are seeing, according to this story, is that, of course, what we've heard before, that the love is lost in this sense. And of course, the genesis of a looming split, and talking about the fact that Ruto is isolated as rifts widen in Jubilee. So
Is it talking about specifics?
Right. Well,
sometimes I think we over dramatize these things.
Well, I mean, like
headline upon headline. Like, this is the headline in the Nation, is it?
Yes.
It's not the first time that the Nation has
this is what I'm saying.
Specific headline.
We've been privy to this kind of thing before. And of course, like, a couple of days ago when we had the boohoo moment from the DP and talking about, why always me, and then talking about him operating in isolation and there's no longer bromance, and all right, then what? Really, then what does it mean for the country, if anything?
We had this debate when we had the by-election in Kibra and what this meant. Was it a photo op? Was it that the president supported the Jubilee candidate? And the debate went on and on and on. This saga and the reporting of it, of political differences, one must be cautious about coming to conclusions about what is actually being said or done. Because if you were to, let's say, pause and go back to 2018, the beginning of 2018, before the famed handshake, if somebody had said, there will be a handshake, you would have smiled, laughed loudly, and asked
moved on.
And started the day by asking, so how are you feeling today?
Right.
Okay. Now, just because there's a handshake, what makes you think that there may not be
another handshake?
No.
An unhandshake?
Yes, exactly. Look, when politicians are going about their business, you see this switching on and switching off all the time. Okay? The very thing that enabled Ruto and Uhuru to actually form a pact, are we saying that the reasons for that particular pact have now sort of like faded away and that the relevance for that unity is no longer there? And okay, even if the relevance isn't there, these are politicians. Are you saying that they no longer want to be relevant in politics? Look, there's a lot that isn't being said, but we, the media, seem to have been determined to promote a certain narrative. We ourselves are promoting this narrative.
There's something, and what is it that is new that would essentially bring about a headline?
Nothing new. This is the thing, unfortunately. And
what has happened that would bring? Oh my goodness! Now look at this. Now this
oh my gosh moment.
This deserves a front page headline.
Yes.
On a Monday morning, that there is clearly a rift. Look at what happened over the weekend,
and therefore,
this is it. I mean, there's I agree with what you are saying, CT. There's a narrative here that's being spun.
I think also the necessity is still there for us to be really aware that anything can happen, and tomorrow that narrative could turn on its head and leave many people wagging their tongues still.
17 minutes after 6 o'clock, this is the Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. We're taking a look at the headlines, the Nation, Standard, and all the others. Remember, you can download the Standard e-paper app from Google Play Store and Apple App Store, and just one subscription fee You can choose either weekly, monthly, or annually. You get to access all of Standard Group's publications, including the Pambazuko, the Mount Kenya Star, and the Standard, with all its daily pullouts. Good morning.
24/7. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM. Spice FM, Nakuru.
Partly cloudy conditions in Nairobi this Monday morning at 17 degrees. We'll see a high of 27 and a low of 16. In Nakuru at 15 degrees, partly cloudy conditions as well. Looking at a low of 14 today with a high of 25. It's going to be clear skies in Mombasa today at 33 degrees the high with a low of 27. In Eldoret at 15 degrees, clear skies today as well. Looking at a high of 27. 23 degrees currently in Kisumu with highs of 31 and lows of 21. 28 degrees in Malindi, highs of 32 and lows of 27. It's 15 degrees in Nyeri, partly cloudy conditions through the day with highs of 26 and lows of 14. Take a look in East Africa at 22 degrees in Kampala, cloudy conditions today, and rain expected later with highs of 28 and lows of 20. It's partly cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 28 degrees, rain expected later on with highs of 33 and lows of 27. Take a look further south in Johannesburg at 12 degrees currently, mostly cloudy conditions with highs of 23 and lows of 11. In Lagos at 29 degrees, we see partly cloudy conditions this morning. Rain expected later with highs of 36 and lows of 26. Looking up into Europe, in Paris at 12 degrees, cloudy conditions, expecting a high of 14 as things warm up, and lows of 7. In London at 8 degrees, cloudy conditions, rain and sleet expected later with highs of 12 and lows of 4. And finally in New York at 8 degrees, partly cloudy conditions. It's going to be sunny skies later on with highs of 12 and lows of 4.
Sugar and spice and everything nice. Everything nice. Spice FM.
Spice up your life. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
And the live stream is up, Spice FM KE on Facebook and Twitter, Spice FM KE. You can watch this show also on www.spicefm.co.ke. We're broadcasting from Nairobi to Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, and Malindi. This is the situation room with Kenya's biggest conversation. My name is Eric Latif. We have Nduwoko and CT Muga. Now, Sonko is seeking control of his government and he has fired a top official. This is the county secretary, Lebo Morintat, who has been moved. Morintat replacement is urban planning chief officer Justus Kathenge. Changes were communicated through a letter dated February 19th. Lebo, who's held this position since July last year, will continue serving in his capacity as the public service management chief officer. Yesterday, Lebo was being called by the Standard newspaper and he did not respond to this. Now remember, there's a motion that was tabled against the governor by Makongeni Ward Representative Peter Imwatok last week. It's going to be discussed in that assembly this week. So I guess Sonko is working hard at ensuring that things are going his way as long as he still remains governor. Peter Imwatok, so to speak, also will be joining us from 9 p.m., 9 to 10.
Try AM.
9 a.m., right? Oh, yes. Did I say p.m.?
You did.
No, I kept quiet because I know with clarity that you meant AM.
AM.
Yes, please.
9 in the morning, this morning on this show, he will be joining us, Peter Imotok, the Makongeni MCA who tabled a motion of impeachment of Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko. So we'll be discussing what his allegations are when he comes in.
Right of governorship in Nairobi, Elachi bans reps' trips to the UAE over debt owed to Dubai firm. The speaker orders investigations into 2.3 million shillings outstanding legal fee balance. Nairobi ward reps' frequent trips to Dubai have come back to haunt the assembly, with Speaker Beatrice Elachi now banning the visits. She ordered investigations into the mysterious, in quotes, 2.35 million shillings legal debt owed to a Dubai-based firm, which was involved in the ward reps' trips. The advocates of Birmingham Leadership Development Centre wrote to the assembly demanding the outstanding legal fee reportedly incurred in 2019. Elachi thus halted trips to the UAE or transit until investigations into the matter are concluded. She directed that the matter be taken over by the Assembly's ad hoc committees. I quote, "As we await the completion of the inquiries and tabling of the reports by the various ad hoc committees, we will unravel the circumstance that led to the unexplained legal claims. Members are advised to cease any official travel to the UAE as the Assembly Service Board addresses the issue." End of quote.
All right.
The company was paid.
They ought to stay here. The company should
They should stay here anyway. But
Do I
okay.
understand them to say that in the absence of this controversy, they would have traveled?
Yes. If there was no legal fee of 2.35 million shillings that was outstanding, they would have
They'd
traveled
have moved on
to go wherever it is that they were going.
And what are we informed as to what it is that they
They
plan
were
to
going
do?
to do in the first place? No.
Beyond benchmarking?
some benchmarking of some sort.
Of course. In the UAE, no doubt.
Or they were going to write a report. They needed to retreat, maybe. You know, these things.
Okay, these things.
Yeah, these
Yeah,
things.
All right, Eric, these things.
BBI meeting in Garissa yesterday. Raila wades into storm over teacher transfers in Garissa. Of course, now this is a hot potato issue, right? Teachers have been transferred because of their complaints over incessant attacks by Al-Shabaab. So teachers who are non-locals have been transferred. And then the local leadership is actually up in arms and saying, look, what's happening to our children? If you move all these teachers, what's going to happen to the education of our kids? Now, opposition leader Raila Odinga has assured the residents of Northeastern region that the education crisis in the area occasioned by an exodus of teachers will be resolved. He claimed he had met with the president before leaving to Garissa to discuss this issue. According to him, a proposal by the leaders from the region to have local students who scored D+ in the KCSE exam trained as primary school teachers and those who scored C- as secondary school teachers is being considered.
Okay.
I actually think that this particular storm, it isn't a storm in a teacup, and that what the TAC did, I'm not even discussing that, I'm discussing the consequences. Now, the discussion of the protection of teachers and the security in that area has now taken center stage. Because in talking about bringing teachers to Garissa, there's this little detail of whether the teachers will be willing to go there or not.
Or not.
See?
Yep.
Now, for that willingness to be taken for granted or to be assured, then these matters of security that have been talked about for the longest time will now have to be addressed.
It now has to be addressed.
Yes, this matter has to be addressed. Right now, there's no band-aid to it. Okay? And they should stop blaming the TSC or blaming this problem.
The TSC has a responsibility.
Yes, it does.
For its teachers.
It does.
You've got to ensure that your teachers
Are safe.
And if everybody else who is supposed to ensure that security is not doing their job, then what does the
Then
TSC
you do your bit and you say, okay, my teachers are not going to be put in harm's way.
Yep.
It's not complicated. Now, if they address these matters and ensure that the safety of the teachers is taken for granted as much as the safety of the citizenry, then the problem, of course, will be solved. But if that isn't taken care of, they can talk all they like. They can, sincerely,
Yep.
people will simply not go. Some people will tell you, I'd rather just be sacked and I will not go. People aren't going to put their lives in danger. Not really.
No.
And when they know very well, it doesn't have to be the case.
Then also, there's something that the teachers' unions have tried to approach, and this is an issue that's also being played out by the leadership.
Yes.
Why is it that it's only teachers who are being attacked? Mainly teachers who are being attacked. We've got other people, other public servants who
work there.
are posted there,
Yeah.
and they're not attacked.
Actually, they tend to bear the brunt of it when they say maybe a public vehicle sort of like hits a landmine.
Yeah.
Maybe yes, but
Yep.
the focused attack. Let me start by saying this: if you're talking about civil servants, teachers are bound to form the majority.
Yes.
Yes, by virtue of the job that they do, and the virtue of the job of the fact that there are many schools, there will be more teachers. Okay, that's number one. But I actually think now, since we are speculating, this is my speculation. They are targeted for a reason. Part of the problem of insecurity that I think we see may go beyond just the normal security issues. There may be clan issues that have left Somalia and come into Kenya. Because remember, the community that is in Garissa have relatives in Somalia.
Yep.
And those relatives that they have in Somalia, or the clan that they have in Somalia, may have people who don't particularly like them in Somalia. If you look at the clan issues that keep happening in Somalia, it is not difficult to understand that those problems can actually be carried into Kenya.
My concern here is I don't see the locals actually talking about how we can work together to ensure security for the teachers.
Let me ask this question.
How we can work together as a community. You know, that promotion of Nyumba Kumi, promotion of community policing, promotion of all those things, saying, for example, that we are going to house the teachers in our homes, anything.
Not even that. Remember, even ordinary locals have been killed by terrorists. Okay? So
Yep.
it's not as though they've been left out of this equation. Now, if you have let's say you work in a region where the people we refer to as terrorists have a sway and have a big say, one of the things that you would be careful about is how you speak about the activities. So I would argue that security for the locals, understanding, remember we had with us here a former deputy speaker of the National Assembly, and he gave us a narrative that I have had time to think about. He says, it isn't that security forces are not told. It's not that there isn't intelligence on what happens. There is. But there was a small issue, according to him, of the security forces acting on the intelligence that they receive. I don't think, when you think about it, who would be happy living in an area where your life is constantly being disrupted by people who are outsiders or some of whom you know? No one will be happy.
Of course not.
But at the same time, no one is going to speak out and point fingers when they know very well that there'll be a reprisal.
Well, this is
They'll
the
keep
thing.
quiet.
It's kind of like the gangs that we see around the world. It's the same concept that nobody wants to rat out who they know very well could be in the same is in the position of perpetrating whatever kind of violence. I dare say that a lot of the residents that we're expecting to see, some kind of uproar come from and say, look, we need to protect these teachers as well, are very aware. Quite aware of who these people are, who these groups are, but they fear for their own life at the same time.
Let me ask, do we hear a lot of the problems that we hear of are in Garissa? Why not Wajir?
Yeah, we also hear those.
No. Garissa has been the focus of a lot of these things.
No, not quite city.
Why don't you do a small Google search and terrorist attacks, Wajir, Garissa,
Yes,
and see.
yes. We
Garissa-
start from Mandera. Mandera, where they even tried to assassinate a governor more than once. Mandera, where they've killed people who have gone there to harvest sand and all that. Mandera, where buses are attacked. Mandera, Wajir, same. Buses
Eric,
attacks in
teachers targeted?
Yes.
Specifically targeted?
Yes.
No.
The number of attacks on those buses in Wajir and Garissa have attacked those teachers. Have actually targeted those teachers.
Eric, other people died in those attacks.
Yes, but the majority of the people in the bus were teachers.
It happens
traveling.
that it was school holidays, so the majority of people traveling from those areas
Was less.
were teachers because there are more.
Exactly.
No.
And that was proper timing.
There's a point I'm trying to get at here. Since we began this year, have we heard of attacks in Mandera? Have we ever in Wajir?
Of what? Of teacher attacks?
No, I'm just talking about just
Total-
General attacks.
General attacks.
terrorist
yes.
attacks.
Yes.
All right?
City, those attacks happen on a regular basis.
Eric, there's a point I'm getting at here. Why is it that when you have a report, if I look at not even we're in February, January to now, most of the reports that we've been reading about have been in the Garissa area. Why?
The reports recently and the cause of issues recently has been in Garissa.
Yes.
The number of complaints that we've had of teachers, the last time there was a teacher uprising, the teachers camping at TSC, was not because of Garissa.
No.
It was actually because of Wajir.
But
the last time that we had teachers complaining that they don't want to be sent back to that region was not because of Garissa.
Garissa is the one place where the worst atrocity committed by terrorists was recorded when they attacked the university.
Yes.
Worst. We have not had any such situation in the three places that we've mentioned.
In the entire country.
If you're talking about landmines, then you're talking about Lamu. You hear of landmines.
Even that road between Garissa and Wajir,
yes,
all the time,
yes,
you hear of IED attacks targeting security forces on a weekly basis.
All right. So why is it that when it comes to issues regarding Garissa, then all of a sudden there is a big hoo-ha?
Let's take a short break, then we come back and inshallah. That's 27 minutes.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, Monday morning, everybody's back on the roads. Kids are back to school after the midterm. So this means, of course, that the roads are already at a standstill. Mombasa road traffic started as early as 5:15 this morning. And all the way back towards the Way Bridge, we have traffic moving at snail's pace and trying to get people through at least to General Motors before you have some kind of reprieve. So here, patience of epic proportions is going to be needed today. On Thika Road, just after the Thika Road Mall, traffic has begun and it's already looking a bit crazy there. Be careful as you approach the Garden City on the inner lane, that being the service lane today, because there's already an accident that has happened there this morning and security, or rather emergency services, are yet to get there. The same Thika Road right around the Baptist Church, around Safari Park Hotel, the flyover there, an accident involving a canter and 3 other vehicles, so please approach with caution. The crazy is already out this morning. We'll take a look at what's happening in other parts of the city, but for now, this is what we have. Nothing major happening at the moment. We'll let you know if we see something. Spice FM KE is how you can reach us on Twitter, or give us a call on 0719 012 600. Let's know what you see and start the Monday morning off right.
Breathing life into the 90s.
Everybody, what's up? I like the way you work.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
It's the situation room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. Thank you very much for
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
In Kisumu, 96.4.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The live stream is also up, www.spicefm.co.ke, as well as our digital platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. In the room this morning, Eric Latif, Nduoko, and CT Muga. Stick around because in the next hour, we're going to be having the Narok Senator, that's Ladama Olekina. And then from the 8 to 9, we'll be having a former presidential candidate, that's Professor James Ole Kiapi. And 9 to 10, we'll talk to Makongeni MCA in Nairobi, Peter Imwatok, to talk about his notice of impeachment of Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko. So, CT, you were saying you were leading us somewhere on the issue of the complaints by teachers in Garissa.
I was saying that if you actually do just a brief search, what you will find is that two things, as is reported by people who actually report on these matters, that many of these attacks tend to take place between December and February. That's one. They've worked it out. But they also, if you look at just beginning from 2014, okay, there were attacks in Mandera, there were attacks in Garissa, but you begin with the quarry workers in Mandera. Then there was a bus ambush, right?
Yeah.
Again, the same Mandera area, okay? The majority of people who, apart from the quarry workers, the majority of people who happened to be casualties were teachers. And then you move down to Garissa, right? Then you have a situation where what you call one of the worst tragedies that we ever witnessed when the university students were killed.
Yes.
Okay? But these weren't the only terrorist attacks that were present in Kenya at that particular point in time. Yes. We had other, those who reported call it lesser attacks, whether they were Al-Qaeda or whether they were Al-Shabaab. But this issue around Garissa, why I'm focusing on Garissa is for a simple reason. If you look at a university attack, students are killed. Again now, periodic targeting of teachers. Yes, teachers. Someone seems to, or a group of people seem determined that anything that has to do with furthering learning has to be brought to a halt. It's not just this random, this bus happened to be traveling. No. It's the learning institution and the learning of students. Now, if you know that your people, remember, what sparked this off is when you read this issue about people, the leaders in that area, asking for students who've gotten certain grading to be taught and to be made teachers. Good enough request, but if you have a university college within your particular geographical area that people see as a threat to their lives, not even a learning institution, and these are things that happen within the area you come from, you cannot tell me that the locals have absolutely no idea who some of these perpetrators are. It's not possible. And I'm going to give you a reason why I'm saying this. If you look at the southern coast of Mombasa, which is predominantly Muslim, there are very many young people who went to be trained, and many, oddly enough, have also come back. Now they're being re-educated. But what the problem is, they felt that they had been marginalized, so they thought there would be a better life. They joined these terrorist groups and found that life wasn't as good as they thought, so they've now come back. Now, recently there was a report in the papers that bodies keep being found in Savo of young men, and when they're identified, they all tend to come from that area. There's a point I'm trying to make here, and that is, these aren't random attacks. But we are now hearing this huge hoo-ha and noise because of the focus that has been on Garissa. That is my point. Nothing further than that. The other was just to provide a background knowledge, information, but this is what I'm saying. Now, the northern community leaders have come up and said, no, this is a big problem. It was always a big problem. We didn't have to have more teachers dying for it to be a problem. It was always a problem. Yes. And this noise should have been made a long time ago.
It should be sustained.
Yes.
What do you think of that proposal, though, that let's take our students who scored D and C plus and train them to become teachers?
That is compounding a problem.
You're just making it worse. I mean,
You want a situation. Why are they not saying look for our A students and make them become or ask them to take an interest in teaching?
Maybe because of what, just like you said, the former MP was telling us, in terms of over the years, the number of people who have passed exams in the region has been low.
Also, if you do well, You leave the county and you don't go back.
Don't
You
go
don't go
back,
back.
of course, yes.
You're doing other things. So if they said that let's look for the people who have scored, who have actually passed, and they qualify to be teachers, they'll not get the numbers.
What I'm
So it's
wondering
just
is,
to show up the numbers and say, all right, so now this is where we are. We don't have people who are qualified enough to become teachers. Now let's lower the grade so that we can take a lot
actually, they don't need to lower the grades. What they need to do is talk to the Ministry of Education to revisit a certain priorities that they place on the training of teachers. We used to have P3, P2, P1 teachers, meaning if you got those grades that they're referring to, you would get a certificate course in teaching, all right? And then as you improved, you would then move on to get maybe a diploma. And then you could move on, okay? So those facilities, if you go to, say, some of these agricultural colleges that we still have, or the TVET education that they've been talking about, they start by offering a certificate. Meaning, if you get a D, you can go for a certificate course.
Yes.
All right? It's like a bridging. If you do well in the certificate course, there's a different level you can move into. So it's not as though the trainings have not been available. Training also have to do with you encouraging people to pursue a certain course and a certain line. It required this action by the TAC for the leaders to rise up and say, you know something, this needs to be done. Because this need didn't start existing when the TAC decided to take the step. No, it has been there all along.
Yep.
And it isn't just a question of teachers. What is the focus of these leaders of ensuring that they have sufficient manpower within their regions? What focus have they given to the actual education of the population? What is it that they've done? Asking the TSC to do this is all good, and we'll ask the government. But what is the focus? Is
Local
it
leadership.
Yes, what is it? If you look at counties or regions where, for instance, education has been at the grasp of many, leaders took the initiative. Is that you off with Harambee schools?
Absolutely. Leaders took the initiative to make sure that, you had increased numbers of students in school, at least making sure that education then was spread out.
And that they're going through and,
Yes.
sitting the KCPE, sitting KCSE,
Yes.
ensuring that there's no drop-off.
Yes.
And actually took an active participation, as opposed to just, over the top announcements, but actually made sure that they were on the ground, seeing that this actually took place.
Even the local religious organizations in many of those, you'll find, participated very seriously in education. Forget the foreign missions sending money. Locals,
absolutely.
You'll find this is a PCA sponsored church. This is an AIC sponsored church.
School,
This is an Anglican sponsored church. This is a school. Yes, the locals. Now, that tells you their commitment to education. The challenge to those leaders, what has been their commitment to education beyond asking the government to intervene?
This issue requires a lot more discussion. And I think even just this over-the-top promise by the former Prime Minister will not cut it. They just need to have more conversations, more discussions. Saying that I spoke to the President before I came here will not necessarily answer the question.
Well, unfortunately, this is
does
the
not
thing.
solve
This
the
is the thing,
problem.
because it's a much deeper issue and it needs a lot more in terms of work that needs to be done to solve it. It can't then be sentiments that are expressed in some kind of euphoria at a particular time, and that's going to be the band-aid, stitch for all of this. It's not. It's much deeper. A lot more work needs to be done. People on the ground need to be involved. I mean, it's like you said, it's a deeper conversation that needs to be had, and it can't just be taken at face value.
But the thing that must also be considered is that part of the world of Kenya for the longest time was actually marginalized.
Yes, it was.
Not that it appeared to be marginalized.
It was.
It was marginalized.
It was.
Yes. So the distance that needs to be covered for some of the things that they want to be done, that having been said, people now have counties.
Oh, there you go. I think there's so many more, because of this marginalization that took place or that was rife over time. There's then so many more intrigues about the area and how things are done that need to be understood in order to solve this problem. It just can't be an expression that's made and then suddenly things fall in place. A lot more needs to be considered.
At 7:15, this is a situation, almost kind of the biggest conversation. Take a short break and then we come back and ask, where do Kenya's wealthiest live? Good morning.
FM, Malindi. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise.
You're listening to Spice FM.
So the census was conducted in August.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up your...
Statistics has released their full result of that census. They released that on Friday. And this is what is forming the bulk of today's headline by the Standard. Vote-rich counties that could decide Raila-Ruto battle. Just before we go there, let's also take a look at this particular one. This is where Kenya's wealthiest live, according to the story. Kenya's richest households are concentrated in Nairobi and its environs. An analysis of the data from the National Census shows Lang'ata and Westlands in Nairobi host a majority of Kenya's affluent class, with a good number of them owning houses with access to the internet and other social amenities. Now, the residents of these suburbs are also highly educated, most with university degrees. The rest of the wealthy are concentrated in Kiambu, Uasin Gishu, Nakuru, Kajiado, and Laikipia counties. So, in terms of population, Lang'ata, 35.9% own a car, 20.4% own their home, 65.9% have access to internet, 25% have university education. This is page 5 of the Standard. Westlands, 32.8% own a car, 23% have a university degree, 16% own a house. So basically, it's just telling us that those are what was considered when you're talking about wealth.
Wealth, right. I was going to say that's interesting because if you look at owning a TV and having a university degree then equaling to some kind of wealth, that's interesting. That's used as a parameter. Yeah, owning a vehicle.
Yep.
Interesting. Yeah, that's used as a peg to wealth.
In some communities, owning a radio, owning a bicycle,
Owning a donkey,
owning a cow
is wealth.
Yes,
Yeah.
it is.
Yeah, very interesting. In some parts, of course, then being able to eat 3 meals a day also is a sign of wealth. Being able to send your children to school also then is a sign of wealth.
In some communities, just having children is a sign
It's a
of
sign
wealth.
of wealth. Right. It's interesting also that the census reveals that more than 20,000 Kenyans live on the streets, if we're going to talk about that. The data shows that 17,747 men sleep on the streets compared to 2,348 girls and women. The majority of homeless people, 14,581, were found in urban centers compared to 5,552 in rural areas. Only 841 women are homeless in rural areas compared to 1,507 men. Nairobi has the highest number of street people at 6,743. Of these, 679 are women. Mombasa comes in second with 1,809, followed by Nyeri with 734. Interestingly, Uasin Gishu, Kajiado, Nakuru, Kiambu each have 600 street persons. Only one woman was found to sleep outdoors in Elgeyo Marakwet, 2 in Baringo, 5 in Kericho, and 6 in Bomet. These are the counties with the least number of street people. According to 1.34 million, the number of births that were recorded to be occurring in hospitals annually. Of course, births in rural areas greatly outnumber those in urban areas by a ratio of 2.1. And looking at the fact that, of course, in rural areas, a lot of births don't take place in hospital.
But a number of 20,000 with a population of 48
almost
million,
48 million.
It means that we can actually house these people.
This is the thing. They shouldn't have to be on the streets. The number is quite low. The
No,
number
it
is
isn't.
quite low compared to the
isn't low.
population. The number of 20,000 people compared to the population, these individuals, if this is the true number, can actually be housed.
Why are they even homeless to begin with?
Of course, they don't look into the details. They're looking at the numbers and the statistics purely.
Well-
They're not looking at the details as to, were you homeless? Were you at some point? Did you have a home? Did you lose a job? They didn't look into
True.
those. Yeah.
But you see, those numbers raise the questions, one of which is what I'm asking.
Yeah.
Why are
Why are they homeless?
Yes, in the first place. What is it that characterizes what you would call a homeless person in this country? What is it? Because, for instance, if you look at the U.S., they would say that probably the world's fourth largest economy is California, and yet it has the largest number of homeless
people.
Yeah, so you ask, why? You have to ask the why question.
Why do you suppose you have many homeless people? If you look at them, they are all concentrated in urban areas. So,
Yes,
of course,
they are.
many of the people in rural areas would have access to a piece of land and a home. So you could find that maybe somebody who does not have that piece of land back home in the rural area and then is in Nairobi and cannot afford to pay rent, then lives on the streets.
This is the thing. And of course, just
An
looking...
indicator of some poverty of some sort.
Well, that or the fact that these individuals may have moved from rural to urban and then realized that they weren't then able to afford the life one, or they were not able to get that thing that made them move in the first place. And of course, then other factors play out that you, of course, don't want to go home to then start from the beginning when you had left in the first place.
Let's take it a bit back and ask, when we talk about homeless populations, are we going to talk about street children who grow up and still remain in the street? Are we talking about people who perhaps, because a good number of people who we consider homeless have mental issues, people who disappeared from home, came to the city.
Right.
And then there's a group of people who appear homeless because you see them in town, but they are professional beggars. Okay? So they come to town, you will see them, and then they'll move away. And there's that lot that you say, either they are disenfranchised, something happened, they came into town, and they have nowhere else to go, so they live within town. And usually the reason why they will be street people or what you call homeless is because begging at some point will put something in your hands. And even if that isn't the case, if they rummage through what we consider to be rubbish, okay, they will tend to find something that they could put to use. Meaning, street life has a life of its own. And what you're seeing is adaptation. Somebody adapts. For instance, have you noticed, if you drive a car or if you're in a vehicle, that in places where you have traffic lights, suddenly there has been an increase of people who have physical deformities on wheelchairs.
Yeah.
Have you observed? They were not there before, but they're suddenly there. And many of them are young. You can see this is a young person, but they're on a wheelchair. But also, in those very same places, there are people who will come out to beg or to ask for alms. Okay? Now, usually when you have such a situation, it is actually a very clear indicator of a direction that the society has taken. Yes. Because do these people have relatives? And if they have relatives, now I'm asking the question as an African. If they have relatives, do the relatives know of their plight? Yes, of their plight. And what is it about them that there are these questions that have to be answered if we're going to answer the 20,000 question?
Right. Of course, that comes into play. And unfortunately, I think that, a census should go, in this case then, a census should kind of go, because you're essentially taking a census for planning purposes. That's one of the reasons why you would do a census, right? So for planning purposes, whether those purposes are economic, however you want to look at what then you want to plan for the future of the country. And then I do think that those factors need to be taken into consideration, because homeless people, if you want to look at the homeless population in the US, for example, they're still under government care. They may be homeless, but there's something that they receive from the government every month in order to survive, whether they're homeless or not, right? And you could see that they will have their statistics in place, but then the government is able to plan and say, we have this number of homeless people. We may not give them adequate housing, but we're going to take care of them in one way or another. And these statistics then help them to plan. Because you could not have a job in the US for the last 10 years, but you get some kind of up to $400, $500 a month to survive.
That social aid system has been criticized. It has been said that it provides an enabling environment for people not to actually look for what they could do.
For sure.
Because in the same breath as you're talking about homelessness, you will find in that same part of the world, they'll have buildings that have been condemned to be destroyed. It's not as though they're falling apart, but people could still live in them. But because of the careful standards that they have, there's no one living in it.
Yep.
Or they've been just buildings that have been abandoned, not even condemned. So if you're talking about space where you could house them, one could argue, but there is
you
space.
You could put up something, right?
But there is also the issue of the individuals who are on the street. Why do they choose to live in the street? Because
what benefit do they?
Yes. Some choose to live in the street.
Oh, absolutely. Because obviously, I mean, in some cases, there's a benefit that you have. Then there's certain responsibilities that you don't have to bear by virtue of you living on the street. It's just like the individuals that we talked about who have been incarcerated for some time and then come out and they realize, oh my goodness, suddenly all this kind of responsibility, apart from the whole seclusion aspect of it, there's a whole lot of responsibility that you then need to take on that you're not ready to, that you don't have the wherewithal to. So you're more comfortable doing this.
The question that also needs to be asked, because again, homelessness is perhaps most noticeable in towns, is you need to go into further demographics and look at where these individuals have essentially come from.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's true. Because in the rural areas, it's rare that you would find somebody on the street who doesn't have a home. They know.
Well, people know who you are.
Who you are,
and where
you come from, who your family members are. Of
Yes.
course, then, and interesting enough, what in the urban centers you would call poke nosing, people are going to find out who this individual is, why he's living or she's living on the street, and then essentially get in touch with their family members.
They will.
They would.
One of the things also that you will find is that in many urban areas, if you look at, say, the advent of street children, it's something that I found interesting when we were doing some work in Kisumu. Many young children who appear to be street children had run away from home.
Yes.
It's not that they didn't have families, no. But give them time, they'll be older street children, they'll be inculcated in that street life, and they will now not want to go back home.
Well, I mean, we had the case. I remember very, very specifically when during the time of the late Karisa Maitha, and he was really working on getting the street families out of the street. And then you had young boys who then at some point would be interviewed and would be in the media, and somebody would come up and say, my goodness, this is my son, has been missing from home for the last 3-4 years. Really? We are fine. So essentially he can come home, that kind of thing. Yeah. So I mean, many of those stories came out
What a
during that
census
time.
does, it gives you the opportunity to ask the questions we're asking. Because it gives you the details. As to why, now that is the question that we must ask and we must seek answers for. Yes. That
Exactly.
isn't the job of the census. No, it isn't.
Our time is running out, but it's very interesting to note just on a last note, NHIF has been summoned by the House team to answer question on theft of funds. So again, we're not just looking at austerity measures or them looking at how they can sort out the issues, but the theft of funds and the corruption is still a big deal at NHIF, and they've got some questions to answer. Of course, we saw that nominee for CS Kagwe is saying that he's going to raise the fees if being given the opportunity. That is not the answer. Again, at the core of the issue is this corruption that's happening at NHIF. It's not about raising or lowering of fees that people have to pay or deductions. This corruption is eating this fund to the core.
Shillings is not what is collapsing in NHIF.
To the core. That money that they're eating and stealing at the core.
Not. Take a short break. Well, let's take a look at traffic. It's coming up to the top of the hour. It's 7 o'clock right here on Spice FM, Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. In the next hour, we'll be having Senator Ledama Olekina from Narok County. We have remained ignorant for way too long. It's time to some people to know the truth. This is what he is saying. He spoke, of course, in the lead up to the meeting in Narok. Now he'll be here shortly. Good morning.
All right, 'tis the season, so there's quite some fog on Mombasa Road. We see the same thing in Dandora and Kangunda Road as well. So the fog is quite low. People being asked to engage their fog light so that you can basically see where you're going. And you want to go a little bit slower to avoid any kind of accidents. So where are we experiencing this? Kitengela, Mombasa Road, Dandora, Kangundo, and parts of Thika Road and Westlands as well. So you want to be extremely careful. Of course, we know that there are more vehicles on the roads today now that the children are back in school. So the roads definitely are bound to be a mess. Mombasa Road is already calling roll call, and Thika Road, of course, has joined the foray this morning. We're trying to get into the CBD. It's very, very slow. 2 accidents already on Thika Road today. Approach and leave with caution, folks. All right, let's look at industrial area today. Enterprise Road, coming out Bunyala Road, and of course joining to Likoni Road this morning. We have some issues trying to get onto into the city, of course, or get off using Jogo Road, there's going to be an issue as well trying to get to the CBD. These are the problem spots that we see right now. Nothing else. We'll take a look at what's happening on Langata Road and Ngong Road in a short while. If you see anything, do let us know. Spice FM KE is how you can reach us on Twitter. Give us a shout. Let us know what you see. It's Monday. Let's see if we can keep it moving.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power.
2.5 minutes past 7 o'clock. Good morning and thank you very much for tuning in to the
Provocateur.
Situation Room right here on Spice FM. This is Kenya's biggest conversation. We are in Nairobi, Mombasa, Kisumu, Nakuru, Eldoret, Nyeri, Malindi. We are worldwide via www.spicefm.co.ke. We're also live streaming the show, video and audio on Spice FM KE Facebook. We are also live streaming on YouTube, Spice FM KE, and Twitter at Spice FM KE. So shortly we'll be joined by the Senator for Narok County. He got stuck in traffic, so he's on his way. Remember also this man received some summons from the DCI in Narok yesterday. This is based on the kind of statements that he was making in Narok over the weekend and in the run-up to the BBI rally in Narok, where he was talking about, land and the people of the Ma being respected. Some of the things that he's been tweeting lately, like, pastoralists, wake up and fight for what is rightfully yours. I would rather die than walk on my knees. Anyone is welcome to invest in Narok, but you must respect land use policy. Agricultural land must not be subdivided. It remains so. Remember when he came here, he also raised the issue of people who are, outsiders coming to buy land from the local Ma people.
And who are outsiders exactly?
People who are not originally from there. People who basically...
And who originally are from there?
From the Maasai area.
Okay, listen. So people who are not in the present residents of
people
Narok,
who are not Maasai.
People who are not present residents of Narok coming to Narok to buy land, and shortly thereafter they subdivide the land and then they sell it off.
Eric.
And they sell it off for commercial purposes.
Present residents.
No. I think the conversation has
I think
to
he's
do
talking
with
about Maasai.
So if you are not Maasai,
You shouldn't buy. But then
that's the conversation.
That's what he's talking about.
Yes.
Hold on
not
to that which
if you're
is
not resident.
generationally yours is what he's saying. But however, I think I can't wait letting Mama sit here and because at the end of the day, you're looking at it's not people coming in and forcing people to give them this land. They're offering willing buyer, willing seller. There are people who are selling this land. So is he basically saying don't sell, hang on to it if you must?
Yes.
Why?
And if you sell, and then the person who's bought the land should not subdivide it.
Why?
Change
They can
of
do whatever
user.
they want to do with their
Change
land.
of user.
They have bought the land.
We
they
need
have
to protect. We need to protect this as agricultural land.
Currency has been exchanged. Then you
Actually,
cannot then dictate what an individual will do with that which he or she has
Eric,
bought.
usually, if you want such a thing to happen, you legislate it. You can legislate land usage. Yes. So pronouncement won't change what is legally there. So change the legality of these things. Remember, when you're talking about the Maasai, the context from which one speaks of them is that they're a minority.
Yes.
If we look at the census report, it tells you a different story.
How?
It's just the population. This is what I found interesting. If you look at what the newspapers have given us as an indication of the numbers of people, of the numbers of, say, the population of the Maasai in this country, unfortunately, they do not qualify to be a minority.
How many are they?
According to this report, is 1.18952 million.
1.1 million.
Yes.
When the biggest tribe is 8 million.
Yes.
And then the second biggest is 6 million.
Yes.
How many tribes do we have above that?
Well, these are
Above
just
the 1
counting.
million?
These are 10, so they are number 10.
So there are 10.
Yes, and how many tribes do we have in this country?
Yeah, according to that report, how many have been counted? How many have been listed? 42 or 44?
Let me see. They have. Let's give them 42 for purpose of discussing. And so there are other. If you remove the 10, there are 32 other communities who have fewer people than the Maasai.
Yes.
Those are the minority.
Yes.
Yes. So I am saying that if you're talking about minority rights, because this is what we're discussing here really, then they are not a minority as they think. They wouldn't legally actually fall into that category of a minority. The minority are people who have 500,000 people, people who have 200,000, and they're such people. Those are minorities.
The Ilchamus, for example, are a minority.
I don't even know there was such a group called Ilchamus.
There are.
See,
right?
I now know there's somebody
there are
called
You learn
Ilchamus.
something new every day.
Yes.
They are part of the Ma-speaking people. Okay, the Ilchamus. They are in Lake Baringo, around Lake Baringo area. They've for a long time, been agitating to have their own constituency. For example, in Baringo, because they say when it comes to representation and leadership, we don't get represented. We are swallowed up when it comes to having getting our voice heard. It's the same kind of argument that the leadership of the Ma was advocating during the BBI meeting in Narok. They were saying, look, so we are about 1 million people spread across the country. We are not just in one area. If you talk about the number of people who, for example, speak Luo, they are mostly concentrated around one area. The Maasai, that 1 million people are in Kajiado, in Narok, in Laikipia, in Samburu, right? Also, if you look at the vast expanse of that.
Yes.
Now, when it comes to our region, we are a minority in our own homes. We are a minority in Kajiado. We are a minority in Narok. We are a minority in Samburu, right? And that's what they're saying. So, look, when we come to getting access to positions of leadership, we need to ensure that only the locals or the Ma-speaking people get first-hand opportunity at becoming leaders in our region.
If you look at
So
those
to ensure
figures
that we are
again, and these were
represented.
presented on Saturday Standard, all right? Here you have a situation where the Meru are number 9 at 1.975. Do you hear them whining and griping about being a minority? Do you ever hear them?
A minority where?
A minority group. Do you ever hear even that sentiment being voiced by the Meru? You don't.
Folks go about doing their business in
Now,
order to move
if
forward.
you
There
want-
are almost 1 million more than the Maasai. 1.9 and 1 million.
No. They are around 700,000 more.
That is almost 1 million.
Yes, Eric. But there's a point I'm trying to get at here, and I will make it when I talk about the grouping of the Mijikenda. 9 communities, and they just call them the Mijikenda. This is a misrepresentation. You know why? You're talking about 2.488 million. Okay? Now, if you look at the Mijikenda, the Giriama are probably the most populous.
Yep.
Then you come to the Digo. Next to the Digo are the Druma. Okay, there's the Kambe, there's the Rabai.
The Jibana, the Chonyi, all those.
Yes,
about
these are
50,
distinct groups. Distinct. It's not one big, they're distinct. Now, when you lump them together, you are actually not giving a clear presentation, and you're also not giving them an ability. I'm dovetailing this from the conversation now about the Ilchamus. That's what they call.
Yeah.
Yes. So now, the Chonyi will say, why are we not being considered? Seriously, because a Chonyi will tell you he's a Chonyi because he's not a Rabbi. He's not a Kambe. He's not a Ribe.
Everybody then has basis to then stand up and complain and say that, we are not being represented. We're being lumped into a group. Everybody then has
Not
basis
really.
for that.
Not really.
No,
Not
but I mean,
really.
if
the
one group...
Luhya could do that because even linguistically, they're not a homogeneous group, but they're called the Luhya. The people who are homogeneous, Kikuyus speak the same language. Luos, same. Kales, similar-ish. There are some who you can understand each other, but they don't. There's a reason why I am bringing this up, and it's this. It is all good and well to talk about these groupings, but the minority issue, again, is a serious issue that shouldn't just be discussed, it should be legislated, because within these so-called groups and large groups, there are people who genuinely feel marginalized and their interests are not taken care of. And when you talk to them, they are lumped together, they say, but you are this. And they're saying, no, actually, no.
This is what I'm saying.
We are
Within
this.
those groups that we're talking about, every small group has basis to complain.
Yes, they do.
Everybody would stand up and say, look.
And they should.
Exactly. Everybody would say, look, I also have an issue. Then why am I being lumped with everybody else? I also feel that in our local representation of leadership, it should be us who are chosen
For
first.
example,
You can't do that by sentiment alone. This is something that has to be taken at the point of the law. Otherwise you can say anything
but
you want.
How do you get to the point of the law?
Well, of course.
You start by agitating for it. You start by raising the issues. And so those issues gain traction, so they get to that point of law. For example, if you're talking about the Jibana, if the Jibana live in a certain area within a coastal region, then they should say that in this particular area of ours, then the local leader, the MCA, should be a Jibana. And it makes a lot of sense because this is where we live. This is where we come from. This is our ancestral area as the Jibana. Yes. And then we have had an influx of other people. We've had an influx of Mijikenda. We have had an influx of these other people from other parts. But because of them coming in now, they have made us a minority in our own area. We should say that the local leadership here, let's have an agreement that the local leadership here shall include one of us. Our voice should be heard. Same thing, I see what the Maa leaders are saying. When you go to Narok, for example, and this is not a new conversation. This is a conversation that they've tried having over and over and over again. If the local people in Narok, for example, feel that now, because of the influx of people from outside the area, we have had less numbers, we should have an agreement. That, yes, even if you guys who are outsiders shall be represented, but we shall ensure that we ring fence some seats for the locals.
Who selects them?
Who selects? It's the people. And if you guys are majority, you're always going to be outvoting us. So let's agree that because we are a minority, we are not going to be playing this game of numbers. Let's agree that this is what shall happen.
You know, the 2/3 gender rule is actually based on that thinking. It's not that there aren't many women in Kenya, but the representation has always been skewed against them.
Yeah.
So you legislate it. You say, okay, if we call it affirmative action. If you want to set this thing right, let's just make it a law. There must be this, there must be. Okay? Now, if you take that same thinking to what we consider minorities, but remember, minorities don't just have to do with what you call ethnicity. No. Religion or religious excuse me, religious leanings also represent minorities. Inclinations towards even political interest. Anything that formulates or brings about a people who are not the majority. And a democracy tends to bring this out more than many other systems. Okay? Excuse me.
Again.
It's okay.
Pole.
If you look at the problems that, say, for instance, they have in Myanmar, one of the reasons why that is being highlighted, because there's a minority who are being targeted here.
Yes.
If you look at the Muslims that are being targeted in China, again, they're a minority. Now, you cannot solve these problems just through dialogue. Dialogue is how you begin, as Eric correctly put it, so that you further this cohesion and understanding. But if you want to ensure that people benefit from it, you have to legislate it. India went that way. And this was in 2017. They had to legislate it. They call it Article 30. Okay? They had to legislate because they also have minority groups. Now, it's a question of, once it's legislated, you can then access it.
Well, this is the thing, and I think that issue of legislation then must be thrown into the ring, because right now, where all of this is taking place is that people are making comments, people are saying things, there are all kinds of expressions that are being put out there, and of course, then it runs the danger of just being that. And I think this part of the conversation has to come into play. The legislation aspect must be thrown in as well. Otherwise, we're going to be talking around in circles for a very long time, and without the realization that without legislation, it's just a pipe dream.
I wonder how we're going to
legislate
legislate it, though. It's in BBI. This is why we're having this conversation around the BBI. But how are we going to put this into law on paper?
How was it done with the 2/3 gender rule?
It is. That's very clear.
Exactly.
I mean, it's one gender versus another gender. When you talk about minority tribes and minority areas, how are you going to be saying
remember,
this?
it's clear now because it's been legislated. Before then,
it was up in
it
the
was
air. Nobody knew how it was going to be done.
What if? It's an issue because of the legislation. That's why there's even this discussion about it. In the absence of that legislation, do you really think we'll be talking about this 2/3 gender rule?
All right, so we're talking about the people who are calling themselves minorities, and Siti Muga thinks that they are not minority because they are over 1 million. The Maasai people, the Maa-speaking people. Senator Ledama Olekina of Narok has joined us in the studio. Let's take a short break, look at weather, and then we come back and have a conversation with him. We have remained ignorant for way too long. It's time to annoy some people by telling them the truth. Maasai land belongs to Maasai people. You cannot handle the truth. People like Ngonjiri Wambogo, if they feel so disgruntled, sell some of your lavish tea plantations in your counties. This is what Senator Ledama Olekina tweeted last week. He's been invited by the DCI. He's going to be talking to the DCI in a couple of days. Let's hear what he has to say about that. Good morning, 16 minutes after 7 o'clock.
All right, fog's really low in most parts of the city of Nairobi. 17 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions for most of the day with highs of 27 and lows of 16. In Nakuru at 15 degrees, partly cloudy conditions as well with highs of 28. In Mombasa at 27 degrees, we see partly cloudy conditions and highs of 33. 16 degrees in Eldoret, clear skies in this part of the morning. Partly cloudy conditions to experience later with highs of 27. In Kisumu at 22 degrees, partly cloudy conditions through the day with highs of 31. A warm day in Malindi at 26 degrees, partly cloudy conditions with high of 32. In Nyeri at 16 degrees, partly cloudy conditions through the day with highs of 26. We'll take a look in East Africa at Kampala at 22 degrees, cloudy conditions, rain expected for most parts of the day with highs of 29. In Dar es Salaam at 28 degrees, rain expected there as well with highs of 33. And further down south in Johannesburg at 12 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions with highs of 23 and lows of 11.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Hata mzee mmoja alisema kujeni mfanye biashara lakini siasa muache. Hii viti ni ya Masai.
Senator Ledama Olekina has in the recent weeks gained a new name.
They must remain as agricultural land. If you want to subdivide it, go through the process, the legal process. Uliza neighbors wako kama tabadilisha wakubali.
So the DCI wants to speak to you.
Because they can't handle the truth.
And what is the truth, Bweshimiwa?
The truth is that we've been ignorant for a very long time. And the truth that is that the majority, or rather the big clans, or not clans, what do you call them, tribes, do not want to hear anything to do with inclusivity when it touches on them. But when it comes to other marginalized communities, they want to be able to go there. And they want to say, we want inclusivity. We want to be counted like one of you. If you look at their lands and territories, historically, and Eric, I'd like to invite you for a beautiful drive. Very beautiful drive indeed.
Just Eric?
I'll invite my dear sister here too. Because he knows it. I'm not going to invite him because he knows it. You know, if you drive, nowadays to go to Narok, you can take 4 different routes. One, you can go through Kiambu town. And then you'll find a small center, Kiambu in itself, which is highly concentrated. And then when you go just a few kilometers, lavish tea estates, coffee estates, you know, huge chunks of land.
Yep.
You can also take another route, which is banana. When you take through the banana, after village market, you go down this new mall, Ruaka, 7 kilometers. You get into a place called Norbrooks or Banana. And then immediately after that,
You're in Tigoni.
Lavish, you know. You can also take another route, the one for Ruaka, going all the way to Nairobi, through Red Hills. If you go back past there, you will also find a place where a lot of people have now decided to subdivide those huge lands because they no longer have any more space. You know, it is wrong, Eric, for 1% of the population of one ethnic group to own almost 90% of all the land that belonged to those people. And then now they traverse into other lands and territories, encroach into them, and say we want inclusivity. We want inclusivity. This has got to stop.
So what you're saying is
the biggest problem is this. I have got no problem and I've got no beef with anybody coming in to buy land, but you must respect the rule of law.
When you say respect the rule of law, Mheshimiwa, what do you mean?
This is what I mean. When you find somewhere that land is agricultural land, leave it as agricultural land. Do not try and circumvent the rule of law. No one has given you the right to subdivide that land because we want food security. Other developed nations, the reason why we are so behind is that if you look at a country like the US, there is over 94 million acres for just food security. We keep on saying the price of food is very expensive in this country, which it is. But why? It is because agricultural land is no longer agricultural land.
So
it is being subdivided.
Is this an issue of maintaining agricultural land for the purposes of food security, or is this an issue of keeping the land in the hands of marginalized people?
Number one.
Which one is it?
Number one, you keep the land in the hands of the marginalized people because that is originally their land. Number two, and the reason being why I'm saying that is because they have respected land use policy. They know that this land is for grazing. We keep it for grazing. If you come and say, my brother, sell me some piece of land, they automatically assume that you're going to get some cows or you're going to get some sheep and goats, and you might even come with a better breed that when the cows are grazing there, they will mix and they will get even a better, they'll improve on their breed.
Senator, I don't see the problem. I don't see the issue here. Maybe you can make it very clear so that we can understand. Because if I come into Maasai land and I buy land today, right? And if I keep it for agricultural purposes, it's mine. I'm
Absolutely.
Not Maasai, for example. So where's the issue? Is the issue that the land belongs to somebody else who is not Maasai?
No.
Or that they're buying this land and doing something else with it? What's the issue?
I think you just nailed the head. You just hit the nail on the head. They are taking the land and using it for other purposes which were not intended.
So you don't have an issue with anybody coming into Maasai land?
You come and buy land, okay? Because I can also come to your place, maybe, just maybe, and someone will sell me land. But the problem here is that when you come to Maasai land, you'll find that people will buy an acre of land at 17,000 shillings. An acre of land at 50,000 shillings. Maybe some other places which have been now encroached heavily, the acre will go up to maybe a maximum of 1 million shillings, which is part of a Kajiado. Then they will subdivide that 1 acre into 8 plots. The one they bought at 17,000 shillings, they will sell each at 350,000. Then what do? They now start bringing a lot of people there without considering the limited resources which are there. The water for people downstream, that's issue number 1. Electricity, number 2. And then number 3, services, other government services like roads. Then all of a sudden, that place became a cosmopolitan. But because even the government had not planned for that place to become 1, cosmopolitan, 2, become a municipality, those people will always live there without any title deed or ownership of that land. I'll give you a perfect example. In Eldoret, a few years ago, many years ago actually, the municipality only reached a certain area. Then some few guys who are cleaners, these guys will clean government offices. They will wake up at 5 in the morning. They'll go and clean the government offices, the municipality offices. And then they will leave there. They will go and they'll meet with some people and say, hey, can I clean your office? They'll clean. So they were able to save a lot of money. And they bought over 3,000 acres of land right next to the municipality. This is the famous Lankas. They bought it from the Nandi people. Nandi people were as naive as the Maasais were. So when they bought that land, another group of people bought another 6,000 acres of land. Then over time, they started subdividing this land. Then World Bank came in and said to these guys in Eldoret, wow, we have to give you some money so that you can be able to make these people live in an hygiene situation. We'll give you money so that you can be able to expand this Eldoret municipality. Subdivide these pieces of land, give each one of them ownership documents. That has never been done. It has been hindered by the local politicians, because the people who have occupied that land are from the Kikuyu community, or rather the Kikuyu tribe from Kenya. So when I talk about the respecting land use policy, and when I talk about inclusivity, I want it to go both ways.
But
smaller clans, smaller tribes agreeing to,
Senator,
yes,
Senator,
go ahead.
I think you're conflating issues.
No.
Somebody comes and buys a piece of land and then
Yes.
goes ahead and does what they think
You
is
cannot
best for
do
that
that.
piece of
You
land,
cannot
right?
do
And
that.
they operate with a government that is alive and kicking. Now, why are you blaming this person and not even pointing a finger at the local leadership?
Let me tell you something.
Why aren't you bringing the government into this area? In fact, let's even move away from Langas and Eldoret. Let's go back into Kajiado and Narok,
Yes.
right? And say people they've bought a piece of land from a local Maasai person. They negotiated, they agreed, and this is how much land has been bought. Then this person subdivides that piece of land. If they're subdividing that piece of land, where is the local government?
First of all, Eric,
And
a lot
shouldn't
of
you
our
be
people,
going back to the government?
it's not only about government. It behooves you as a person who is coming to buy land to follow the rule of law. It's not only the government.
Are they breaking the rule
Are
of
they
law?
breaking
Yes,
a law?
yes, they are.
Are they
Because
breaking a law?
if you come in and you buy a piece of land which is agricultural land, and then you subdivide it into plots, that's already breaking the law, because the law is very clear.
There's no change of
Okay,
user.
there's no change of user, and the change of user include you asking the neighbor who sold you the land, the community that sold you the land, whether they have any problem of you subdividing land.
Right.
In fact,
So
there is a
if-
caveat emptor which you've got
so
to
this
put
is-
out there.
If you have
Okay.
not sought the word or advice from your neighbor, why isn't your neighbor complaining? Why is your neighbor waiting for Ledamo Lekina to come and complain?
Because
10,
Ledamo
15 years
Lekina
later?
is their leader and is elected, and
There you
because
go. So
these
Ledamo
people
Lekina is the one
did
to
not
blame.
know. These people did not know their rights. They do not know their rights because no one took the time to tell them their rights. Number one. Number two, and even if they complain, this is an issue where you go to Narok as an example, and the people who are in the land control board, even the person who give the consent of land control board is a district commissioner who is not originally from that area. So
Would
he
that
doesn't give a
change?
hoot in hell.
Would that okay? So I think there are very many issues here that we're looking at. Then because we're looking at local leadership,
So we'll go to
we're looking
issue
at
number one.
and then we're looking at the rule of law.
Yes.
And at the same time, then you're looking at marginalized groups. You're
Yes.
looking at three different things at the
Yes,
same
I
time.
agree.
So if somebody comes in and buys a piece of land, according to you now, they're breaking the law if they then go and subdivide this land, and
Absolutely.
people were not aware of that.
Absolutely.
And people were not aware of that before.
yes.
Now, to say now being able at this point, what are you saying then that it would change if this land remained in the hands of the Maasai people? We would not have this kind of subdivision that we are seeing.
You got it right.
So essentially, what you're saying is that people should not come into Maasai land and buy
They don't
land.
need to come.
Is that what you're saying? Nobody
Well-
else. I mean,
well, let
is that
me-
what
let me
you're
tell
saying?
you, they
Nobody
don't
should
really
come
need
in.
to come.
Nobody should come in from
No,
outside
they don't need
Maasai
to
land
come.
and
they
buy.
don't need to come because when they come and their intention is to come and subdivide that land for plots, then they shouldn't come
But do
at
you
all.
think
But
these
They shouldn't
people
come
are
at all.
actually breaking the law willingly?
Yes.
Is it possible that the
Yes.
person who's actually come
Yes.
and bought a piece of land somewhere in Kitengela, or let's even go somewhere into Narok, they've actually come and bought a piece of land and they're looking at what they want to do with that piece of land? The issue of understanding, just the same way as the Maasai is ignorant, is also possible that this Kikuyu or Kalenjin is also as ignorant of the
No,
law.
I think people are getting the whole, or rather, my whole beef wrong. Okay, one of the big problem that I have is that those people who are taking everything that I'm saying and adding their own sugar and spices and saying that this is a tribal warlord are completely mistaken.
Do you see where they would be coming from if they
BBI
said
has
that?
given us an opportunity to come out and air out all our problems. The reason why Raila Amolo Odinga, His Excellency, and Uhuru Muigai Kenyatta, His Excellency, met is because of all these problems. Okay? So if people are not willing to handle the truth, for me to come out and say this is our problem and this is how we must fix it, then they don't live in the 21st century.
So you're talking about other tribes, but it's
You
not
know?
tribal.
Say that again?
You're talking about other tribes, but it's not a tribal
No,
issue.
it is not tribal. The only person who will think it's tribal is a person who is still sort of like in that tribalism bubble. It is about the rights. It is about getting tired of slums. One day, Eric, we'll go to Wilson Airport and hire a chopper and go around this Nairobi city.
Yep.
You will cry with the way other people in Kenya live. They live like they're children of a lesser God, just because we cannot plant for them. Okay, the slums, because the government cannot. So BBI is giving us an opportunity now to discuss all these issues and to correct them.
All right. 7:30, let's take a short break, take a look at traffic, and then we come back and continue this conversation. Ledama Olekina, the senator for Narok County, is in the studio and he's raising the issues and he's saying if you can't handle the truth, then there's a problem somewhere. But this, what I'm speaking, is the truth as I see it. Do you agree with him? We'll open up the phone lines at some point at about 7:45 so that we can hear whether you agree with Senator Ledama Olekina. Good morning. Let's take a look at traffic.
Family is where it all happens. The highs and the lows, the cries and the laughter, the good times and the bad times. We are family, and from us to you, we give you the very
classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, traffic along Thika Road this morning, all the way from Roy Sambo towards town. It's quite terrible today, horrific to say the least is what we're hearing. Of course, then joining Thika Road from Kiambu Road, where we have 6 lanes forming, where there should just be 3 or 4. It's a real issue today. Also, Mwiki Kasarani, where that road should have been at least sorted out by now, is a problem. There is the option of going through Huruma Outer Ring, Mathare North, more airbase. Well, it's going to take you half the morning to avoid the traffic from what we see today. The mist is very low along Koma Rock and Mombasa Road, all the way far back as Kitengela. Very, very low this morning. So it's going to slow down travels today. All right, taking a look at Langata Road today, coming into the city centre and joining the T-Mall roundabout. Very slow this morning already. It's building up, folks. This would have been the time to have gotten out. But if you're going to be there, you're going to exercise quite a lot of patience this morning. Jogger Road giving some good vibes right now, getting to the City Stadium roundabout and then into the city centre, not so bad. Limuru Road, traffic starts at Village Market heading towards town. And then, of course, Mombasa Road is still quite chock-a-blocked. We'll let you know what it looks like in a short while. But for now, everywhere seems to be a mess, folks.
Breathing life into the 90s.
Everybody, what's up?
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Senator Ledama.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
Right here on Spice FM.
Spice up yourself.
The situation. CT Muga.
Mornings done right.
So
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
But not Maasai, moving into Maasai territory and buying pieces of land and then subdividing, and you have an issue with that.
Yes, I do.
And you're saying that they are breaking the law.
Yes, sir. Yes, they
but also you're imputing improper motive on them and saying that, you know, the way you're speaking is as if those people were coming here with a direct intention of breaking the law so that they can disenfranchise the local people.
That's exactly what is happening. It's an issue of gerrymandering.
But
I mean, we are politicians. We talk about wanting our people. You know what is a bit hypocritical? And I want to be very, very clear is that those people who are still in their tribal cocoon or rather bubble, you know, keep pointing fingers at me. They're saying, oh, this guy is attacking our people. If really we are talking about, and we are honest that Kenya is one Kenya, one people, one nation, why should the governor of Kericho go out and hold a press conference and say, this guy is a tribal warlord, is fighting our people? Yet, there's another county between Narok and Kericho. There's Bomet County, which is there. Why can they then say, we leave it to the people of Narok, if they really believe that we included in one pot, all of us as one tribe? Okay? You see, the problem, Eric, Muga, and my dear sister, is that people here feel so bad when someone comes and say the truth. The truth is, we are a tribal nation. Because if we were not tribal, and I want to go back to this, and I told William Ruto yesterday that, you cannot continue walking around with a mug which is clean outside and it's rotten inside. Because if you're saying to the Kikuyu nation, which in fact everything that he was uttering yesterday, one, it was insubordination. Number two, it was lying and blindfolding these Kikuyu people, because if you really care about them, you are the deputy president. First of all, go make sure they have their title deeds in Eldoret. That's number one. Number two, then you can be cleaning the inside of that mug and say we are now one nation, one people. That's issue number one. Number two, you cannot then come out and say we are going to stop this reggae. Yet your boss is the one who started that reggae.
So would you accept exertions?
Because the reggae has been overtaken. The reggae has just been hijacked.
It hasn't. You guys cannot handle the truth.
Okay.
This is an opportunity for us to be able to air all our grievances.
Senator, then would you accept assertions that say then you are tribal as well?
You know what? Absolutely. Because we are all tribal. You see, I'm willing to accept that in this nation, we are a nation which is made up of 44 ethnic groups.
So you then come...
So I identify myself first as a Maasai.
Absolutely. So now when it's come and it's shown itself in the negative light in which it has taken over this time, would you then, those who say that your assertions are incendiary, what would you say about that?
I would tell them that they are hiding behind their own tribal cocoons, and soon they'll come out. And they are soon slowly coming out.
And you don't see...
I'm listening. No. I'm listening to what you're saying, Senator.
Yes.
And what I hear you talking about in everything that you've said, you're talking about the need for affirmative action.
That's number one. That's issue number one. Eric, Muga, I'm very happy that you say that, because this is not the first time. The issues that I'm raising here, I am not the first person to raise these issues. These issues have been raised for the Aboriginal people. That's number one. These issues have been raised for the Native Americans, the people who are referred to as
for the Maoris,
red Indians.
Yes.
For the Maoris. The United Nations recognizes the Maasais as indigenous people. Okay, they are the original landowners of this country called Kenya.
What you call a native community.
A native community. So why is it difficult for people to accept the truth?
Actually, the reason is this. I would have argued that if you're talking about affirmative action, what I'm calling affirmative action, what you agree with me is affirmative action, the fight would be to ensure that there's adequate legislation that protects the rights. And the thing about affirmative action, it's actually positive discrimination. That's what it does, because it's actually discriminatory, but in favor of a community, meaning it has to look after the interests of these people, irrespective of everything else that happens.
Thank you. In fact, what you just said is like what I say, potato. You said exactly what I'm fighting for. Because if you go to the to Baringo, you'll find a small group of Maasai called El Chamus. Okay?
Yes, we were talking about them just before you came.
El Chamus are people who have even gone to court, talked about the discrimination, fought for affirmative action, and this government has refused to grant them what the court of law has granted them.
Why?
Impunity, that's number one. That's the only reason why I can say that. And because the big ethnic groups do not want to hear anything about inclusivity when it touches them. But when it does not touch them, when it is inclusivity for the smaller group to accept the bigger group, then it's like everybody is saying, let's do this. Let me put it this way. BBI is actually one of the best things that could ever happen to this country. Because one way or the other, and earlier on I was a little bit against the whole proposal, the way it had been brought in. But now, when it was taken to the people through the political movement, because, politicians are the ones who can be able to put together a group,
whip up emotions.
They can not even whip up emotions. No. They are the ones who can tell the truth.
Actually, politicians are not really known for telling the truth, but that's not the discussion.
Okay, that's not the discussion. Let's go about this. They are the ones who can be able to have big masses and communicate and convey a message to them.
Yes,
just like it has been evident. If you look at what happened in Narok, in fact, you guys have got to congratulate us for organizing such an amazing, beautiful, BBI rally. I mean, compared to all the other rallies, Narok is number one. But that's not the issue here. The issue is this. One, BBI, I'm saying, is the best thing that can happen to this country.
Yes.
Because then we can agree to disagree. Or we can agree to disagree. Because when Ledamo Lekina comes out and say, I would like Maasai land, if Muga comes to Narok and buy a piece of land, first of all, do two things. One, in the documentation, it must be written original Maasai land, because we've got to protect the interest of that land, whatever is remaining. That's issue number one. Number two, Muga follows the due process of the law. You know, have a big baraza, say, gentlemen, I'd like to change the land use policy here. I'd like to subdivide and gerrymander. Exactly, that's what you're going to be doing, bringing a big population. And then they'll say no. And then, at my own proposition, is that I would actually say, Muga, come, do your business, but leave the politics to the people. Leave the local politics to the people. Let the people try to find a way to organize themselves. There's nothing tribalism about that.
So basically what you're saying is you are welcome to stay here, but...
Absolutely. Do your business.
You will never be a part of us.
Don't be. You know, when Trump says that, when Trump says that, let me tell you, when Trump says things, people think he's a mad guy.
How can you say that? How can you say that? But out of the other side of your mouth, Senator, you're saying that BBI is the best thing that could happen for this country on issues of cohesion. How can you say those two things?
You know what Eric just said? You know what Eric just said? Eric caught me in the moment and said that basically what you're saying is that you're welcome to come here and do business, but not be part of us. No. You're welcome to come do business, be part of us, but leave the politics to us. Respect the politics to us.
But
how can I be
so there's
part
only
of you?
so much that I can be part of you there.
So long as you don't legislate this, you know something, we'll continue this battle of words. Let me give an example of what you call the Indian nation within America.
Yes.
The laws that govern what they call the reservation, believe me, they are laws that supersede whatever law the nation of the U.S. actually has.
Thank you.
Meaning, when you are within those so-called reservations, there are laws that pertain there.
Yes.
And only there.
Yes.
Now, all I'm saying is, should this not be then the fight? Meaning, since this is our peculiar problem, and Maasai are not the only minority. Minorities will include, for instance, the Hindu, who religiously are a minority, okay? It will include the Swami Bapas. It will include the Baha'i. It will include people who believe in ancestral gods. Anything that touches on the so-called minority will have their rights protected, and it will be by law. So that the very things that Mheshimiwa was talking about here, if you go to Narok, you know, when you are in Narok, these are the laws by which you abide.
Absolutely.
So it isn't a fighting match between someone saying, it's just
but
when you're here.
All the areas of this country will just become reserves.
No. Can I tell you something, Eric?
Yeah.
In fact, thank you for actually demystifying it. One of the laws or one of the propositions that we have is that when you come to Narok and you buy land next to the Masai Mara, you're buying that land knowing that if it is right next to the park, that is a wildlife corridor. If it is adjacent to the park, or rather slowly, further from the corridor, that is land which is reserved for private conservancies. You can still make money.
Yep.
We do not allow you to come and build, big white mabatis or even fence the area with electric fence, because then you affect the way those animals live. So the laws there are very, very clear, and they should be abided by everyone. And in fact, you'd be surprised. A lot of people who have bought land next to the park are politicians. Some of them who are not saying anything right now. And because they buy that land, they are wanting to go and put a small tented camp, lodge, or something like that. They know that you can make money, but they complain that there are too many white, iron sheets here. Too many. In fact, the animals are running away, which is true. In some cases, animals run away. In fact, the other time, if it wasn't for the Tanzanian government, banning a lot of the grass in Serengeti, we would not have had so many wildlife migration coming in. Because when they migrate, they don't stay in one place. They keep going and going, and they go all the way to the private conservancies. So all I'm saying is this: let us recognize the fact that these people have been traumatized for way too long. You know, look at the Maasais. In fact, if you go, which is actually very sad, we've got a huge piece of land which has been in dispute for many years. It's about 75,000 acres.
Kedong?
75,000 acres. In that 75,000 acres, there were about 1.5 million sheep. There were about 800 to 1 million cows grazing in that. That is the economy of the Maasai. You know, economy of the Maasai. In fact, the Maasais were so organized such that they would leave certain areas for a rainy day. You know, but then guess what has happened? When that land was taken back from the colonial masters, it went into private individuals without knowing. And the colonial masters say, let it go back to the people. Now what is happening? The entire, what do you call it? The
SGR.
dry SGR, the dry pot is being put up there. And then the worst thing that could ever happen to the Maasais. There's a big trench and a fence being put there. So what is happening? Some of the cows which are trying to go in for the green grass are breaking their legs. Others, they are being hit by cars because they are now not even inside because the other part has been, they have been kicked out of that place.
Yeah,
they are now right on the roadside. You
All
know
the
what?
issues
That
you're
is
raising-
serious poverty for the Maasai nation.
All the issues you're raising, you know, they have merit. The issue, however, is when you bring that merit and then you mix it and juxtapose it with the issue of saying these other tribes are the ones that are coming to do this against the Maasai.
But it is true,
Probably
Eric.
that's where
It
the
is-
issue
but
comes
it
in.
is true,
That
Eric.
you know, you now start becoming a tribal person instead of advocating for the rights of your people. You're basically saying you're fighting all the other tribes.
I'm doing both. I am not fighting the other tribes. Eric, I'm not. If you listen to me, and Kenyans need to listen to me. If today you go to Eldoret, last year, was it last year or the year before? I think it was the year before. These people who are saying they are not tribal, these people who are pointing all the fingers to me and saying Olekina is a tribal warlord, they were up in arms fighting for one of theirs to become the vice chancellor of Eldoret University. That is number one.
It was the first time
You know?
that had happened.
Okay? It was no, but then number two, Muga, I've just told you this. These people will never treat the same people, other tribes, the Kikuyus, the Luos, the Luyas, who live
And
in Eldoret
and
like them,
Kissis.
and Kisses like them. Like right now, the hawkers in Eldoret are treated like people of, I don't know, they are treated like
said a
homeless,
lesser god.
of a lesser god. They are not being allowed. So listen, my challenge to William Ruto is this. Don't say you can stop reggae because you ain't not going to stop reggae. Okay? No way.
The
There's
beat
no
will
way you
continue.
can't. The beat will continue. In fact, if you got a little problem with it, you know, you need to listen to a little Bob Marley and say everything is going to be all right. That's what you need to do.
Now bring in the twang. All right. So yes. 12 minutes to 8 o'clock. I'm going to open up the phone lines 0719-012-600. That's 0719-012-600. Good morning.
Spice FM, Malindi.
Have you got your helmet on, Senator? We're going to go to keep the phone lines. All right, let's
I
go.
can handle it, man.
Joel, good morning. Calling you from Kericho. Joel.
Yes, Eric. But
Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
Talk to the
Spice
Senator.
up yourself. Mornings done right.
All right.
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Sonora,
Not
good
the
morning.
reggae.
Hello, Sonora.
Hello.
Hello.
Good morning.
Good morning to you.
How are you doing? Speak to the Senator. He's in the studio.
Yeah, I'm doing fine. We're saying Senator Ledema may be right, but I think he's putting it very wrongly. The issue of people living where they are, like in Narok and maybe Kajiado,
Yeah.
where the Ma people are, it's not about a tribe. It's an individual. I woke up myself and go to Kajiado, buy land. It's not, I'm a Luo, and that is not Luos. So you can't call a tribe on one thing. It's an individual. And again, it's about the law regarding the land and how the land should be used. Then Ladema is one of the people who should be putting up a legislation that would ensure the lands are used properly. So when I go to Kajiado, I go to Narok and I buy land, if the legislation is not clear, then I will do it whatever I need to do with it.
Thank you. Thank you, Senora. We hear you. Joel is back from Kericho. Joel, is this better now?
Yeah, niko naye nakupata vitu sana. Sasa Eric.
Yes.
Huyu ni mheshimiwa seneta ambaye amechukulia watu kabila zote zenye wako Narok. Alafu sasa siku anatarajia mheshimiwa Lekina huwa anakuheshimu, lakini yale matamshi ambayo ndugu yangu unaongea kidogo haifai. Okay?
Kama gani?
Kama kusema ati mtu akinunua shamba hafai kufunga. Si kila mtu akinunua shamba, tukiongea hivyo mheshimiwa, unajua ni makosa sana. Mimi nikinunua shamba hata ukikuja Kericho ununue, utafanya chenye unataka. Na siwezi nikakuja, sina haki ya kukwambia atafanya hii, atafanya no. Yeah? Willing seller, willing buyer.
All right. Okay.
Na kujojea watu mheshimiwa hivyo, sasa hivi ungefaa kuwa DCI, lakini sasa uko kwa side ya president, what do you expect?
Wow. Okay.
Can I just respond to the two?
Let's pick Karanja in Nanyuki. Karanja in Nanyuki, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, speak to the Senator, Karanja.
Oh, good morning, Senator.
Good morning, Karanja. How are you doing?
I'm doing fine. You know, all of the Haitians in this country, they first have the interest of their tribe. Therefore, there's nothing bad you're doing, but for the sake of the land, I think every Kenyan have a right to buy land everywhere in this country. Asante.
Thank you.
Actually, let me respond to the three gentlemen. I agree with the first gentleman that it is not about a tribe, it's an individual. However, when the politician changes it into a tribe, because when we are talking about conservation for the Mau Forest, the same guys who are still in that bubble of tribalism, from Kericho, the Kericho governor, and the other people. And I don't. There's something wrong with people from Kericho because they can't tell the truth. Leaders, no, not the people. Let me correct that. The two leaders. The two leaders, the governor and the senator. Now I'll tell you why. The senator went on national television and lied. You know, I'm so glad that Honorable Manje came to Narok and went on national television and told people of Kenya that, no, I was not chased away. But Aaron Cheriot went on JKL Live and said, Menje was kicked out with 13 other MCAs by Raila Amolo Odinga. You know, it is a lie. Don't tell a lie. That's number one. Number two, the other issue with the governor of Kericho. He's making this a tribal issue. He started making it. He went to court and sued us because of conservation. He said, my people, the Kipsigis, are being kicked out. Now, Sonora said it, that it's an individual. If we treat it as an individual, in fact, it will come back to this issue of what do you call it? Road use, where there's supposed to be 4 lanes and there are 6 lanes in discipline. Then we can deal with them that way.
As individuals.
Number two, Joel from Kericho. I have no problem with anybody buying land. The problem that I have, and I want to make it clear, is that land use policy, food security, okay, and local politics. And Muga couldn't put it any better. Affirmative action for the people who live there. Nanyuki, I have no problem, Karanja. I have a lot of people who have bought land. They even have titles. We even help them to get titles. But the problem is this, and in fact, Karanja, I think he would be agreeing with me, that if you come and buy land as someone from Central, the first thing you do is that you want a place where you can grow food. If I give you 20 acres, don't subdivide them. Use the 20 acres and grow food so that we can also buy food from you. You know, we can all live together.
Have you had conversations with those people who've come and bought land in Narok and established that the reason why these people are subdividing land is because they don't care for the Maasai people?
No, you know what they do? Let me tell you something, which is something which we need to do as a country. The government has got to now allocate land to these big ethnic groups, which God has continued to bless them, and they're having many kids. You know, for us, and if the government is not willing to do that, then the government should invest a lot in family planning for them. For us,
So
we are so lucky.
The other bigger tribes that have land pressure,
they should be given land.
Elsewhere.
Yeah, they should be given land. Yesterday we went to Garissa.
So they shouldn't, essentially, what you're saying is that they should not go to the areas where the marginalized people live to continue to get more.
No, where there's land available.
Where there's land,
yes.
Where marginalized people currently coexist to get any more land.
And yet our constitution allows for freedom of movement.
It does allow.
Country. Yes.
But Muga, earlier on you are agreeing with me.
I'm still agreeing with you.
You're agreeing with me. But because you see, the thing is, for us, the Maasai nation, we still want to instill discipline. In fact, when you look at BBI, it talks about national ethos. It talks about shared prosperity. When you're talking about shared prosperity, we don't want a situation where the Maasais will be in the streets.
But then it can't come with conditions, Senator, can it?
Mweshimiwa, there's something that you keep saying, but maybe you're not articulating it well. You're talking, you seem to be referring to what we would call public good of the Maasai. You see, our laws are very clear about it. And this must be protected. Now, I am not a lawyer, but the little that I read about the law explains this to me. That even now we have provisions within the law that can actually support the very things you are saying, the things you're bringing up. And if they're inadequate, that is where the affirmative action that I spoke of comes in. Because if the public interest of the Maasai is not being taken care of, I agree with you that you have every right to raise it. You know where the problem comes in? It's when, in that same statement, you then point to another ethnic group, and with you, it tends to be the Kikuyu. Now it's
no.
I'm simply telling you what seems to come out. No. Mweshimiwa, I'm simply explaining to you what comes out.
Okay.
That's what is heard.
Okay, now
so people say you're attacking the Maasai, and now you're attacking the Kipsigis. Kipsigis specifically from Kericho. That's how it sounds.
It comes out.
Let me make it very clear.
Unless you want to change that.
I'm not going to change anything. I'm going to say it this way. I have a problem with the Kericho governor and the Kericho senator because of is trying to continue stigmatizing the local people.
Do you have a problem with the Kipsigis?
I have no problem with the Kipsigis. I have 8 Kipsigis working in my farm today. 8. Okay? In fact, one of my security guy is a Kipsigis. I have no problem with that at all. And they live peacefully. And let me tell you something. What you don't know. No. Let me tell you.
So if they were to come to Narok, for example, and buy land and then subdivide that land, then you would have an issue with them.
Can I tell you something which you don't know? The Kipsigis in Narok, the ones who live in Narok, the ones who have lived in Narok for many years, agree with me 100%.
That what exactly?
Okay, that one, we must conserve our land. That the little land they have, they don't want these other people coming in and encroaching. And the problem is this, and I want one day to invite you. You go to Kericho. I know you're having a problem with this. Kericho, all the land in Kericho has been taken by a huge multinational corporation. So there's no land for these people to live in.
Land pressure in Kericho.
Okay,
yes.
There's no land for these people to live in. So before the people start encroaching into these tea plantations, they are like, Apana, go to Narok, there's still more land
Is
there.
it encroaching or are people buying land?
No, even encroaching. Where do you think the poor people will get money to buy land from?
I see an issue here. And maybe you need to clarify.
Yes.
Because it seems that a lot of things can be said. And yes, there's merit in some of the things that you're saying, Senator.
And everything.
But, right, so that could be argued too. But are we not going to look further and say that unless legislation comes into play, some of these issues are not going to be dealt with?
My dear sister, you're saying it right, and this is why BBI is here, for us to be able to know what can be legislated, what can be administrative, because this issue of land use policy, it can be administrative, because there's a law already exists.
Take a pause. Let's take a look at the traffic, and then we continue this conversation for a short while. We have Senator Ledamo Olekina from Narok, who's in the studio. Of course, he's now a firebrand. He speaks. He's saying he's telling the truth. He's calling it the truth. And we'll also open the phone lines again for you to just give him one or two comments. Good morning. It's 8 o'clock.
Sugar and spice and everything
All right, looking a little bit better on the further Mombasa Road. Namanga Road at Kitengela is moving a little bit better than it was previously. Thika Road, of course, there's construction that's going on right now at the flyovers. So this definitely tampers with traffic there as well. We had 2 accidents and now adding the 3rd on Thika Road this morning. So it's affecting traffic getting in and out of the city. On Langata Road, traffic is moving very slowly right around KWS and then moving slowly down. Ngong Road is clear this morning with smooth traffic flow and it's going to be A-OK there. Buruburu to Bahati is thick, and of course this affects Jogo Road getting into the city centre. With traffic, fog is still quite low in Kariobangi, so everybody's moving a little bit slower than usual. Getting into the CBD will not be too bad. Once you get in there, it'll be all right, but getting there is the challenge right now. We'll let you know what it looks like in a short while. If you find an alternative, do let us know. The southern and eastern bypasses are still options for you to use right now. Spice FMKE is how you can reach us on Twitter. Give us a call, tell us what you see. Let's make this a little bit more bearable this Monday morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Speaking people, before we pick. Let's just pick one phone call and then I know you have a question that you'd like to ask. This is Karaoke in Nakuru. Good morning, Karaoke.
Good morning. How are you guys?
We're fine.
We are fine, Karaoke. How is Wakulima Market?
It is okay, but the complaint is very big.
Why is your voice so low this morning?
At least a fever, a little bit fever, you know.
Oh,
I've been cold for a time now.
Yes.
My question is to Olekina.
Yes.
I remember the same issue he's raising that other time when I remember the former late minister was still alive. Remember the 1990s?
Which minister?
When
William Ole Ntimama?
Ole Ntimama.
Yep.
I remember the same issue was raised in the early 1990s. And truly you are a witness to me. After that kind of a raising of the issue of land in Narok, especially when he was the kingpin. Mm-hmm. I remember what followed thereafter is that the influx of especially the Kikuyus living the Narok area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you remember that?
Yep.
Yes.
Sir, please, my question to Olekina right now, what I'm raising, is that I don't think he was very happy after maybe being a witness to an influx of the Kikuyus living in those areas. And I remember nobody in this country was happy about it, if I can recall.
Karaoke, you have a question. You're not. What's the question, Karaoke?
You mean
my question is the issue of land. Anybody has a right to buy land anywhere in this country. And if you buy land, I think it is better for you to be given a right to do whatever you want to do with it. If you go to Central Province today, and you find somebody who maybe the Maasai are referring to as alien because he's not a Maasai in their area. If you come to Kikuyu land, that person is refers to an owner of that land. Whether it's a Kalenjin, whether it's a Luya or a Luo, he is referred to as a person of that area, and he has a right to be there.
Thank you, Karaoke.
Thank you.
Eric, I love what this guy just said. Kikuyu land. You know? So what is wrong with us saying Maasai land? You know,
there's
people out on the ground, let me tell you, I just don't agree that when you buy land, you're free to do what you want to do. If you buy land in Karen, let me tell you, and you say you want to put apartments, you are now going to put apartments.
There are restrictions.
Okay, there are restrictions. Okay? And, you know, one of your promos says Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice. I love that. You know? You can be Kikuyu by birth.
And Masai
by choice. But I'm not seeing the Kenyan by choice running for political office. Anyway, that was enlightened. But in this case, but in this case, I think it boils down to the issue of discipline. And I'd like to invite some of our local leaders, and I mean Kenyan leaders, to go on benchmarking, not anywhere far, but to go just here, Rwanda, right here, to see how Kagame has been able to instill discipline to the people of Rwanda. Land use policies. In fact, people live in small areas so that government can be able to give them services. Right now, the Ministry of Health policy discriminates our people. Okay? Because it says for them to be able to be given a health center, there must be 5,000 people in one area. 5,000 people. For them to be able to be given a dispensary, there must be 10,000 people.
It's discriminatory against pastoralists because
pastoralists
they're moving by nature.
We move from one place to another.
Right, yes.
Okay? So in this case, really, so if you come in now and all of a sudden you disrupt our economic activities, yet we are still talking about wanting an economic revolution. You know? There's no way that you can say we want one thing and it is good for us, but we don't want this because it will take money away from us and give it to these other people. We are having serious problems, and this is why I'm telling the government and all politicians, my colleagues, senators, we need to smell the coffee. We need to know that we are mortal beings, that we're in this world for a very short time. Like right now, Eric, let me just make it very clear to you. There are certain things that we do in Parliament which are not right, and they are influenced by the executive.
Like?
One, we've got the third generation formula. The Constitution is very clear. It says that once every 5 years, the Senate shall determine the formula to be used to divide revenue. We now have a problem with that because of population census. We now have a problem with that because of the majority of government is from one ethnic group, such that if CRA, the Commission of Revenue Allocation, and I would like you to invite them, maybe to explain this thing in deeper, come up with a formula which we think this will provide equity. You know, not equality, but some form of equity. They say, no, we don't want it. You know why? Because money is going to Northeastern. Money is going to Masai land. You know?
Who's saying that?
It's a fact.
Politicians. Politicians would say that.
Yes. But because when you look at that equity, that formula, okay, and you look at the land size, they say, no. If you divide money based on the land size, we will not get money. More money will go to these other places which they have more land but fewer people. So now they want to come up with a new formula, and this is why we have continued to violate the law. They say, let's divide money from the center of the county to the service area. So if Nairobi City is here, and I can be able to get an ID up at the standard building, that's how you divide the money. So, but then in Narok, the land is big. We are 17,000 square kilometer. You cannot take the entire 17,000 kilometer because Kiambu is not 17,000 square kilometer. Nyeri is not 17,000.
Which is okay for,
okay?
you know, Senator,
so what I'm saying is
one of the reasons why the people of Narok elected you to go into the Senate is so that you can articulate the issues for them, right? Not just the Maasai people, but the people around that and Kenya in general, right? So it's okay for you to actually do that. But now, when you raise these issues, but you take the tribal angle.
There's no tribal angle.
And actually, it comes out.
It comes out as there is.
You know what?
Yes.
And I think it's...
or against, let's not even call it tribal, or people.
Eric,
no, instead of
we have to call it tribal because
this is a policy issue.
It's easier to understand. But there's something I wanted to read to the senator that actually supports the things that he's trying to put forth. It's the freedom of movement and residence. It says Parliament shall not enact a law that permits the state or any person to arbitrarily deprive a person of property or any description or of any interest or right over any property of any description, or to limit or in any way restrict the enjoyment of any such right under the article on the basis of any of the grounds specified as contemplated in Article 27. Now, this is the clincher. The state shall not deprive a person of property of any description or of any interest or in right over property of any description unless the deprivation results from an acquisition of land or of an interest in land or a conversion of any interest in land or title deed to land in accordance with Chapter 5, or is a basic public purpose or in the public interest and is carried out in accordance with the Constitution. Meaning, the law even supports you.
In simple terms, it simply means follow the due process of the law.
Yes, but also, when you are passing this message, we are telling you because we receive your message.
Yes.
What comes out is that you are anti-Kikuyu. What also comes out now is that you're anti-Kipsigis. Now, there is a messaging that needs to be clear.
How can you be anti-Nyeri? How?
No.
That's how it's coming out.
It comes out
but
like
also,
that.
There are bits of what you've just read, City, that do not support what the senator is saying.
Like what?
Because the senator, for example, is saying that when you buy a piece of land in this particular region,
you should keep it under agricultural use.
You should only.
But that's
keep
exactly
it under
what he said.
use.
Actually,
that's exactly what he said.
Eric, when I say it supports, meaning you have legislation that points to as to how this thing ought to be handled.
Be used.
That's what I was saying.
Yes.
Now,
but also, if somebody, wherever they've come from, whether they've come from North Coast or if they've come from Turkana,
it doesn't matter where they come
if
from.
they've come and I buy land in Narok, right? That law applies to them.
Yes, but there are restrictions that also are allowed.
The same way that the same law applies to the Maasai person.
Let me summarize this by saying
you cannot
this.
say that because
Eric,
I have come here and I've bought a piece of land, then I live under secondary legislation.
No. Eric, let me summarize it this way. Maybe this can be able to clear the airwaves. Anyone is welcome to come to Narok and do business, buy land. However, you must abide by the land use policy. Okay? The first thing you need to do is to find out the land that you're buying. Is the issue of subdividing allowed? Can you buy 1 acre and create 8 plots and bring more people?
Yep.
And we've got to consider all these other services. You know, there are areas which government is spending so much money, okay, like in towns, in urban centers.
Yep.
We need to come up with a spatial plan to be able to ensure that this area is zoned as follows. For Narok, around the CBD, it is for residential and commercial property. Outside the CBD or outside wherever, you can have 5 acres. Outside that, you can have 20 acres, 30 acres. And then maybe within those areas, there's like a small center which is reserved. And in fact, let me tell you, in the old county council regime, those councillors were extremely wise. They said, in fact, for me, I got my land through because I was a member of a group ranch. Okay? And that's why I keep insisting that this is original Maasai land.
Yep.
Because that's why I was given. That's why someone else cannot come in and say, I belong to here or I buy that land. When we were subdividing the community land, we set aside an area for an urban center. The rest of the land, it was restricted to be strictly used for agricultural purposes, you know, for our livestock. But then, after several, different, during the devolution era, we all started violating that rule, where you have 20 acres of land, you then decide to subdivide the 20 acres of land to make plots and urban centers.
And people in authority were not
people
doing what
in
they were supposed to do,
authority,
because
let me tell you something. Even if the people in authority were not doing what is supposed to be done, even you yourself doing that which you know is wrong is also wrong.
Yes.
Okay? So both of you are wrong. So in this case, I think the most important thing that we must do here is, first of all, we need to educate our people that when you buy land in this area, it is zoned in a certain way. Number 2, we need to admit and be ready to face the truth so that we can be able to find a place where we can all meet in the middle and say, okay, Olekena, these are your recommendations for the BBI. These are, I keep forgetting your name.
Ndu.
Ndu. I think we may have to go for coffee so that I know how to
pronounce. I'll take you through an hour of pronouncing it. Don't even worry about it.
So, Ndu, these are your propositions. You know, Moga, Eric, this is what you want to say. Can we all put them on the ground, on the table, and find a meeting ground?
So you're okay then coexisting?
I have no problem with that.
Because quite a number of people feel the opposite.
Because
I think it's an opportunity to clear the air.
Let me tell you something. if you come to my home, I'm one of the biggest employers in Narok. Private person. I have Luos, I have Kisses, I have Kalenjins, I have Kambas, I have Luyas, I have, which other ethnic group? Turkanas, I have, everyone does what they're good at, So I love this. I love this diversity. But I just want us to respect each other.
But is it possible to
But
talk
you want them
about,
to lie low like an envelope.
Is it possible to talk
Eric,
about the
I'm surprised you would say that. There's not even anything like low like an envelope. It's lie low like an antelope. Unateremka tu chini hivi kidogo unakula
Like an
nyasi.
antelope.
Unakula nyasi tu kidogo. But you know what, I want to end by saying this.
Yes.
As long as I live, I will continue to pursue justice for my people. Because that is why they elected me.
And
for me, I have, I said this before when I was in this show, that I am an extremist for freedom and liberty, and I am a radical for gentleness. You know that. You know that, Eric. The people who I work with, the people who I relate to, understand that. So, call me a radical,
Whatever.
call me whatever, but it's for the good, not for the bad.
All right.
Good.
One day you'll come and eat some good meat, which is roasted by a Kikuyu in my home, and I have Masais who roast meat, just so that you see that I love each other. We love each other. Let's just respect
You
each
live
other.
in harmony.
We live in harmony,
Mheshimiwa,
but we must respect each other.
Your senatorship covers the natives of Narok, but it also covers those who have become natives.
I agree.
But
they cannot become native. No, they
there's
can't.
the clincher.
They cannot become natives because, my
They're
friend,
visitors.
you're
Let's end this
either
interview.
black or white.
Asante sana, Senator Ledama Ole Kina, for joining us. We wish you all the best as you also have your meeting with the DCI.
No, that they cancelled it.
Oh, they cancelled
They
it.
chickened out.
All right.
Oh, they chickened out.
Because it's the truth.
They understood it's the truth. Asante sana. We wish you all the best. Next, we'll be having Professor James Ole Kiyapi. He ran for presidency in 2013. And of course, he'll be here to tell us the experience that he got after that. And he'll also be telling us what he thinks about Senator Ledama Ole Kina's sentiments. We've seen he has tweeted and said, well, there are people who are misunderstanding the senator. Well, let's hear what he says about that. Good morning. It's 18 minutes after 8.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, taking a look in Nairobi. Fog quite low this morning at 18 degrees. We're seeing this conditions to continue through the day with highs of 27 and lows of 16. Taking a look at what's going on in Nakuru, partly cloudy conditions at 17, highs of 24 and lows of 14. It's partly cloudy in Mombasa. We'll have some sunny conditions following shortly with highs of 33 and lows of 27. In Eldoret at 17 degrees, mostly cloudy conditions, partly mostly cloudy through the day. Later on with chances of rain at 27 degrees the high and the low up 14. 22 degrees in Kisumu, highs of 31 and lows of 21, partly cloudy conditions as well. It's a warm day in Malindi at 29 degrees, highs of 32 and lows of 27. In Nyeri at 16 degrees, partly cloudy conditions with highs of 26 and lows of 15. In Kampala, partly cloudy conditions and rain expected later with highs of 29 and lows of 21. And finally in Dar es Salaam, partly cloudy conditions, rain expected later with highs of 33 and lows of 27.
into the 90s.
Everybody, what's up?
94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning.
In the studio, my name is Eric.
Spice up yourself.
City Muga, and now joined in the
Mornings.
hot seat by Professor James Olekeyapi. Soba.
Eva Olekiapi.
Yes.
James Olekiapi.
Karibu sana, Prof.
You.
And just before, you walked in as your senator was leaving the studio, the senator for Narok County. And I can see you've also tweeted about him. And you said Ledama Olekina is being criticized for not being politically correct at the show, but in fact he's provided deep insights of sentiments at the core of tribalism in Kenya. True national cohesion must be based on deeply ingrained culture of inclusivity and integration programs. Kizungu mingi, Prof.
Yes, all I meant is in very simple terms is that he was speaking the language that you would actually hear among the locals if you went deep into Narok County.
Mm-hmm.
That's the sort of village talk that, we are being finished and everybody is taking away our land and all of that.
Mm-hmm.
It's very simplistic, but if you peel it layer by layer, you'll find out that over time it creates tension, of Kenyans against Kenyans, because when you talk about integration, when you talk about inclusivity, Kenyans look at it from various dimensions. It's not only land, it's not only where I can live or not live. For example, I have a house in Uasin Gishu County, and nobody has ever told me, you're Maasai, you shouldn't have a home here. And I have a home in my own county, in Narok County. Of course, that's my home. So, and there are a lot of people from all over the country who are in Kajiado, who are in Samburu, and who are in Narok. And I think we must have what we call justice that goes across the board. So that if you talk about, appointments in the national government, in the public service, across the board, we must see that inclusion cutting across.
Now, there's representation across the country.
There is representation across the country. One time I did very simple mathematics and I said, if you really, really want to demonstrate inclusivity and that representation. If you decide, for example, I have 22 cabinet secretaries, and you say, even if you go on the principle of equity meaning that those who are more take a little bit more. So if you said, let me share this and then let the following 22 communities of Kenya take the slots. Then there is another layer of position you're going to give called principal secretaries. You would want to reach again out to more and more. Why? Because if we deny that we are not ethnic, then we are lying. But if we accept that we are first coming from smaller nations called ethnic communities, then you must bring them together by first of all demonstrating that principle of equity. And with time, the more you do that, the more it reaches a point when it doesn't matter anymore who becomes president. Because Kenya, across the board, will see it as it doesn't matter. Whoever goes there will always treat all of us equitably, not even equally, equitably.
Right.
So I think for me that was the first principle. I was saying that a lot of people sometimes like talking and appearing like I don't want to be.
We are running away from this truth.
Okay. Yes. And so that is what I meant by political correctness. But I was saying go deeper. Take those sentiments and use them to elaborate sensitive national policies, including county. I mean, for example, one of the points, of course, I would also challenge Lekina to do, as a senator, which is part of the leadership of the county, they should actually enforce regulations, they should enforce land use policies, and therefore, a lot of the things that are said in the rallies don't need to be said in the rallies because it is your role to do them.
It's the job of leaders.
You can already do that. You already have the power to do it. And so it is really a balancing act.
All right.
Yeah.
Prof, you vied for presidency in 2013. And just before that, you were principal secretary. PS, that time it was permanent secretary for education.
And it was substantively permanent secretary.
It was proper permanent.
and it was powerful. I mean, I'll explain to you a bit.
Right.
Yes.
And then now you decided to, you wanted to get yourself into politics. This was your first venture into politics, was it?
No.
National politics at that level?
Yes. I mean, that was my first run into the presidential campaign. But I actually wanted to run for member of parliament. And my own member of parliament, Mr. Konjela, was very crafty.
Yeah.
He went to talk to Mr. Mudaura. I came to know this later. Somebody told me the story and said, this character called Professor Lekiapi is going to take this seat from me.
Right.
And he won't accept, something small token.
Yes.
We must give him something that even the community at home will not allow him to say no to.
Wow.
And so from nowhere, and I had a very simple campaign approach in the district, in the constituency. I would go to the publishers and get like Jomo Kenyatta publisher, KLB. Education was my platform.
Yeah.
And I was going there and I would go and buy a wholesale price from the publishers and go and hold what I was calling book harambe. So I would call parents, everyone to just contribute one book. Then I'll bring my 2 cartons of books and then we will put them all on a large table. And if you go to a secondary school that has never seen some of those textbooks, you can just see visible smiles and passion and joy.
So that was your strategy?
That was my strategy. So, and I was doing it so well and it was having gravitas. So on this particular day, I'd come from Jomo Kenyatta Foundation and I was actually around this place on Mombasa Highway, on Mombasa Road, going to plan for the weekend trip home so that I go and do my thing. And suddenly my phone was jammed. I've been appointed permanent secretary.
Bas.
And the whole story changed. Now,
you were displaced.
I didn't, immediately there were sort of conflicting voices within me. Do I take it or do I not? And the reason was that there was a local guy. I remember a debate with some young people. And one person asked me, Kiapi, if you are given a job like a director or permanent secretary, will you abandon us? So I was in a dilemma. If I say yes, I had very firmly confirmed to that young man
that you
would never abandon them.
Under no circumstance would I take any other thing. But now here I am. I'm given a very good position. I'm appointed by the president. Do I say no? Or do I take the job and damn the consequences on the ground?
It's a bigger platform for you.
But my uncle did a very wise thing. He called about 1,000 people to my home in Osupuko village in Transmara. And one weekend, by the way, I didn't go home the first, the second. I almost took 3 weeks because I didn't know what I was doing. Yeah. Finally, when I went home, my uncle actually stood and he spoke very well. He said, this is the fellow you've been telling us, where is your, where is that son of yours that everybody you're telling us about? Now I'm a Patua Kazi. So what are you going to do? So he said, here he is. Now tell him what you want. Tell him if you want him to take the job, tell him to take the job. If you want him to leave the presidential appointment and come here and run so that you give him the seat, do that. Of course, they debated. Finally, they said, no, we have never had a job like this, and then they just said, take it. So I took it. Of course, I don't know that everybody vindicated me. I mean, I think some held, unjustified grudges, but that's how life is.
So if they had said otherwise, if they had said, don't take the job and come and represent us on this seat, would you have done that?
I would have done that. I would have done that. Because I was conflicted myself. I even went to church and I was praying and I said, Lord, sort this out. And actually, when I went home, it was very clear. Very clear.
That they supported you.
Now, later on, fast forward, this friend of mine told me
Take a short
that
break, Prof. Let's take a look at traffic and then we come and continue this conversation. It's a very interesting tale of how you got into politics. And I think it's very important that we start from those foundations, from somebody who's working in the education sector, who's working a lot with the community, who has his eyes set on the parliamentary seat. And then you're saying some of those who are also playing politics at that point play higher level politics, and you find yourself getting appointed into a very big national seat. This is the principal secretary, a permanent secretary for education. Let's take a short break, and then Professor Keyepi will tell us what happened next and how did he end up on the presidential ballot in 2013. Good morning, 8:30.
Spice FM, Nyeri. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
Usual traffic holdups on Thika Road, right around Muthaiga, and then, of course, again at Garden City, and then Allsop. So there's parts of the road moving very well, but then when you get to certain pockets, of course, this slows down. Mombasa Road, of course, moving slowly, but surely this morning, getting out of those bottlenecks as well. Valley Arcade, Oledume, Owings, Kodek Junction, some problems there, moving very slowly. Of course, then getting to Gitanga Road. This is, of course, because of the situation of the road, so everybody's moving a lot slower than usual. Langata Road, getting to the Timor roundabout, easy right now, and then joining Bagathi Way till you get to the City Mortuary roundabout. Not so bad getting into the CBD. Things looking a little bit better than they were before. Southern and Eastern bypass is using to get in and out of Thika Road and Mombasa Road. Not so bad either. You can use those as options right now. Spice FMKE is how you can reach us on Twitter. If you see something out of the ordinary, to let us know. Let us know how we can keep you moving this morning.
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Narok County. So we had the senator, now we have Professor James Olekiati, who is also from Narok County. The next hour we'll be having
Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
So, Prof, you were telling us about your entry into politics. You've been played at some point.
Yes, and I think the goal was to bring this guy in, let him come, and then after election, we just throw him out. So I was appointed, actually, on the 20th of December, 2006. I went to. I was first PS of environment.
Environment, yes.
And then I was the only PS who, about 6 years, I moved to every 2 years. I moved to a new ministry. I started with environment, and then I went to medical services. In environment, I worked under 3 ministers, very difficult people, but very good people. Very good people. Kivuta Kibwana was very nice, gentle, and then the late Miraria, and then Michuki closed it up. And you know Michuki, he was a mover.
Right.
And then I went to medical, I was with Anyang Nyong'o. And then finally I went to education with Ongeri.
Yes.
So the trap was, let's get him in, and then we can just get him out.
Yeah. Keep him busy.
But I wouldn't let them get me out. Because when I got in, I had committed to myself that wherever I go in government, because I was always yearning to go and make a difference in policy making, and just because we were complaining as academics. Like I was in academia all along. Why are these things not being done, and so forth and so on? But now I had my chance. So I said, if I would be in a ministry for a month or 2 months, or a year,
you'll give it your best.
I would give it my best, and I wouldn't give a damn what anyone would do in terms of like threats or what. I didn't really care about that. I just wanted to do the best I could to the Republic. And therefore I performed. And we had a very nice head of civil service, Mudaura, a very experienced man who understood both politics and the running of public service. And he understood also the meaning of diversity. So in the end, he said, this guy is great. He's going nowhere. Until finally, I took out myself in 2012 running for president. Now, why did I run for president? There were 2 major reasons. Number one, the 2007-2008 post-election violence. That violence, I saw it myself, I observed it myself, and a bunch of us were really a bit angry. We were angry because we were the one managing the mess in the ministries. Staff in the ministries, there was tension among the various staff coming from different communities of Kenya, and you are now this daddy and mommy to try and bring these tensions down, and it wasn't pleasant. But 2, what I saw happening actually on in that part of Western Kenya, it was unbelievable. I don't want to describe it because you know it. Until one day, somebody actually said, another lady, a good lady said, aren't there any other men in this nation or women that you have to allow 2 people or a bunch of fellows to take the country round and round? So a lot of us started into conversation, even PS friends of mine. We were meeting. I wasn't alone. It was a group of people. But with the time, many of them disappeared one by one. We started as a team, and we said, why don't we make a difference? Why don't we bring a new narrative, a different agenda, a different alternative? And then secondly, the PNU and the ODM ministers, after they made the country fight, as soon as the agreement was signed, one day I had a moment, I will not describe where it happened. When I see these people doing high fives and laughing.
They're the best of buddies.
As if all this was just a game.
Yeah.
It was just a joke. And meanwhile, there was so much animosity out there
amongst the
people.
Yeah.
And I looked at it, I was a PS. When you are a PS, you observe ministers. And you observe this silliness of adults behaving as if it was just a game of us versus you.
It was like a football match.
It was like a football match.
So you were coming to disrupt this
and then,
very well organized football
nonsense.
match.
No, this was a Premier League.
No, and then a number of times, again, I will not mention names, I was right there between my job and telling a minister, no, sir, you can't do this. It is not allowed. You want me to sign this for you. And I know very well that it is wrong. It is wrong. And then I say, these are the guys that Kenyans call Mheshimiwa outside. These are the same characters that they trust to change the country. Then I say, we are taken for a long ride. And we are waiting for a long time.
Right.
So for me, I got what I would call like moral courage. I just got a boldness that, you know what, I might not even win. But, sitting and watching this, it's not acceptable.
So was it enough for you to then put your name on that ballot? With the frustration that you clearly felt, was it enough?
It was more than enough, not just because it also happened that a lot of the things that I was doing as a PS, I would teach just sailing. Like I would push everything that I would, and then the matter now needs to go to the next level.
Prof, umefika mwisho. This is it.
Wachana na hiyo.
That's it.
This is something you have done for the last half a year. And then suddenly, wachana na hiyo. And you don't know where it's coming from. Then I said, this is crap. I have to go to let us go to the field. Let me go at least and let me go and tell Kenyans what's happening. And I actually told Kenyans, unfortunately, they were not listening.
Did you tell us?
What did you say? When did you say this? When did you
In fact, I remember when Jubilee Alliance, it was Jubilee Alliance and ODM.
Yeah.
I remember one day severally telling people on national TV. But you see, the media, when we speak to cameras in the field, whatever finally comes out of TV, it's like a few seconds of a minute of very good
sound
bites. I said, the difference, you people, you're fighting over these two groups. The difference between this one and that one is the same. There was no difference. And there's still no difference. It is a matter of combination and permutation. Who is on this side this time and who is on that side next time. It is the same. It has always been like that.
Monkeys for the same
it's a conspiracy against the people. And unfortunately, the people are unable to see on their own. Yes.
So did you feel that you were the one then who was going to help Kenyans see?
I felt that I could make the difference. I felt that I needed, it wasn't to be me alone. It wasn't to be a bunch of us of like mind.
And has that changed?
You wanted to be the hummingbird.
It hasn't changed.
It hasn't changed?
It hasn't changed. Not a bit.
With
hindsight,
a bit. With the hindsight, Mheshimiwa, do you now understand what you could have done differently to actually perhaps do better in this competition that you had thrown yourself into?
No, I didn't do... I didn't perform as I did because I didn't know the enormity of the issue. It was that under the circumstances then, we gave our very best. But the political arena in Kenya is very different. It is framed in a way that the people have no chance of winning.
Where the people you mean?
The ordinary Mwananchi
the voter
has no chance of winning in the sense of we are electing the four of us here. We have promised the people we are going to do 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes.
And that now they have given us that chance. We do 1, 2, 3, 4. They don't have a chance.
Never ever.
Meaning our votes mean nothing.
Yes.
Even now, of course.
They just do what they want to do. I mean, tell me, give me an example of when they have done what when they have told the people they will do. I mean, I don't want to name and give examples, but you know what I'm talking about.
So are you saying the same?
But
the political class.
No, let me tell you, the country called Kenya is hijacked by the political class. Everything they do is a framing to just give them another power grab.
But who is this? Grab. Who is this then who controls this political class? Because you can't tell me that all these people
the political
think
class,
the same way.
By the way, can I tell you the political class, who they are?
Yeah.
If you take a pyramid, like a triangle, at the top there, you have the politicians we elect. Yes. Some of them very innocently.
Yes.
There was a time we felt that most of them were not well educated, and that therefore, if we sent more educated people, things would be better.
Yes.
I can tell you, if you look at Parliament today, there's more educated young people with degrees and all of that, but things ain't better at all. So there is a very small group there of the political elite, meaning that those that we elect. They are sponsors, which is the rich cartels that are behind, that you never know who they are. The
shadowy figures.
And they never run for anything. The shadowy figure, they are just there.
Right.
Their job is just to make sure we have favorable people at the top. And then you have the so-called professionals, because the professional class, us, we are also a letdown to the nation. Because what happens is that we participate, wittingly or unwittingly, we participate in this game of chicanery, lying to the nation. Because we are the same, we become the beneficiary of the appointments, and we just become part of the cartel system. And so the middle class is unable to move and become the social consciousness of the country.
So what you're saying is that, in essence, the political class is a gang.
And it's a gang for which we've become part of.
Okay. So we are a part of this gang.
We are part of that gang.
But we don't know who's controlling the gang.
Can I tell you why? Look all over the world, east, west, south. There's no country that has ever changed when the middle class remains indifferent.
Right.
When the middle class, and by middle class I mean professionals,
Yeah.
professors, lawyers, doctors, the people who think politics is dirty.
Yeah.
As long as they remain at the back and they're watching the dance, there's dancing, there's reggae. As long as they stay there and they watch the dance, then we want to keep our hands clean.
Let's take a short break, Prof. And then when we come out of this short break, you'll tell us who is the shadowy figures who run these politicians.
The cartels.
The cartels. Who are they and how can we identify them? Good morning. It's 13 minutes to 9 o'clock.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
90 are people who are nameless. They have no name. But you know that they exist because they're the ones who take government contracts at inflated prices. In fact, I had a chance, so I know who they are. I had a chance to, when I was appointed PS for Health, when I went there, a lot of my friends were concerned that how are you going to deal with mafia? Because it was called Mafia House. Instead of Afia House, it was called Mafia House.
With good reason.
With good reason. Right. The Ministry of Health for the Republic of Kenya is perceived to be a mafia house. So people told me, what are you going to do? And they size you, they check who you are. And at that time, I said the PSS were powerful because we were the accounting officers, meaning we are responsible for every cent and shilling, and we were the authorized officers, meaning that we were responsible for all staff.
You ran the show.
We ran the show. The minister was the political head. But I could as well tell the minister, no, you are not going for that trip. It's not useful. It's not useful to the government of Kenya. And it's not a thing they will do. Without my signature, no one will do it. Now, this CSS business has completely changed everything. The CSS are now the CEOs.
Right.
So let none of them ever tell you that I didn't know what was happening in the ministry.
They knew.
They knew. They were right at the center of it. How can a CEO say that I don't know? How can a CEO say I didn't know
what was going on?
How 5 billion disappeared?
And their signatures are required.
And they are the ones who direct and say, give this one to this one and do this one and do. So it's a moral issue. You decide as a human being, as a Kenyan, and say, I'm not going to take part in this. And
so we have too many. What we're looking at now, if you look at the whole, is that we have too many people not making that decision.
One day, can I tell you, I stood in Afia House because a bunch of young men who are my friends just came to me with slick suits, and I saw them carrying briefcases. And they were coming to tell me that same nonsense. And the whole day I was hearing that one and the same thing, cartels. And I stood from my chair and I looked through the window and I looked downtown. And I said, you mean this whole business is just about deals? I mean, what we are calling governance is deals. I said, damn it, this is not right. The Kenyan people deserve so much more. And I think that is why I'm telling Kenyans now, those who are listening to me, that we have got to really interrogate those who become our leaders at MCA, at member of parliament, at senator level, all the way to the president.
Are those the only ones who need to be interrogated? Because you just said now that everybody is playing a part. The middle class is playing a part in this sham, as you called it. Are they the only ones who need to interrogate?
I hold the ones in the office responsible because as a PS, I would say no, and there's nobody who would go. They can only fire me. They could only fire me. There was nothing else anybody could do to me. If I say no, I will not sign this. I mean, I was taken to Mombasa, and you know what happened? An assistant minister in Mombasa calls me and says there's a guy I should meet in Mombasa. And I meet the guy, and I don't know who the guy is. And the guy comes and says, you see, there's a file in the ministry. I want you to go and pass, and it is worth 125 million, and that, 10% is yours. And then I started imagining what 12 million would do for me. But I went back and I said, I'm not signing it. I refuse. I made the decision. I even refused to release a certain payment. And as soon as I was removed to education, the guy who came after me came and released the payment. I mean, come on, what are we talking about?
So it doesn't matter.
In fact, my greatest regret is that I worked so hard in the public service, and a lot of the things I did were just.
That's what I'm saying.
But why do you? But why is there regret, Professor?
Because it's a regret that you've worked so hard in vain.
No. Why do you say it is in vain?
Because everything I did was undone.
Yes, but with what consequences?
No, listen, in a sense, you feel it's like you sweat all your life, and then you discover what you built. Others just came and pull it down. And you feel a sense of letdown.
Yeah.
However, for your own self, you feel vindicated. You feel that I did my very best and I made a difference. And then, if they because there is a God in heaven, let at least there's a record that I did my best.
Right.
I believe that God does exist in heaven, because when you went to the Ministry of Education, there was a very big issue in the ministry.
Yes.
And you were being blamed for it. And yet,
yes,
everything had taken place before you actually got there.
Thank you.
What was
Isn't there a God in heaven? No, I like this guy.
Yeah.
Because
we like him.
That era was perpetuated. And all I had, and I ended up defending what I didn't need to defend.
Take us back to that. What exactly was happening at the Ministry of Education when you went there?
You see, as I was telling you, I was always moved without no justification. My real background in terms of academic qualification is environmental issue. Put me there, I'm a fish in water. And when I was taking environment, it is considered in Kenya, unfortunately, it's supposed to be a big ministry.
Yep.
It's supposed to be at the center of our sustainability and sustainable development. But we think
it's a small ministry.
It is a small
It's
ministry.
a token ministry.
It's a token ministry. If you are taken there, it's kind of a demotion. So when I went there, I said, I'm happy here because I can make it big. And I started moving. And donors started coming. I remember a Rockefeller group coming to my office. And after we talked about climate change, they told me, they talked to New York and they said, we want this guy to be, to implement this, we will give you money. And then 1 week later, I was moved.
You're moved.
And then
Had the money arrived?
The guys in the ministry tried to follow up and they said, the PS we believed in has gone. So we are not giving you money. End of the story. Because donors want credibility.
Yeah.
If they think you can deliver and you're not going to, it is their task, what we call taxpayers' money. We don't value our
own tax
payers
in
money.
this country.
The attitude in Kenya is that public is for free.
Yes.
Mheshimiwa, you're explaining what happened to the
education.
education.
No,
I really want to hear.
So I was moved. I was just telling I kept getting moved. So when I was moved to education, I actually found there was an investigation going on. So what I did, I told all the senior officials, please give all the documentation. I don't want to interfere with this thing because I don't even know what is being investigated. Let them do their job. It was an accounting issue. Let them do it. I have never met that team. They never came to me even for a courtesy call to say, sorry, Mr. PS, we need your people to cooperate in ABCD.
Yep.
So that I can whip everybody into line.
Yes.
So suddenly a report comes, and then I think it went to the PS, was it Treasury? And then the then finance minister, who is now the president, announced and said that 8 billion is missing
in the Ministry
of Education.
wow.
Yep.
Okay.
And hell broke loose. My friend Karega, who was there, had already been conveniently moved to local government. So now the fire came to me.
Yep.
And then it didn't help that Lumumba, PLO, my friend, Lumumba went on national TV and said the minister and the PS must take political responsibility. I can't call him and say, PLO, how can you do that? Please meet me tomorrow in the ministry. Let us address the media. I want you to tell them this is not the PS I'm talking about. He never did. So I was in the firing line alone.
If people called for your resignation, what called for your arrest.
What helped me was the nation. The nation actually helped me. And Nat. Nat said, Wachana na Kiapi. Kiapi knows nothing about this. Because it turns out it was a query on money that was spent in 2007, 2008. During that time, I was meandering in between environment and health. Okay. I didn't even know I would come to education.
You never end up in education.
That's how it went. And actually, I almost got, because I was called at the highest level, by the ambassador Mudawara and said, if things go bad,
if this becomes too hot,
we have to take action. I said, Ambassador, but when I went there, fortunately,
right,
it turned out the issue really was there was a voucher that released money to primary schools. And that voucher, the original was missing. But the copy was the one that the auditors saw. And they queried, where is the original voucher? And as long as you don't explain everything, they will say this money is unaccounted.
Yes.
But so what eventually we did, I told them to call the banks that they send the money to. And the banks gave statements of all the schools showing that they indeed received the money and the money indeed went to schools. That's how we were saved.
Wow.
Professor James Olekiapi is in the studio. He's telling us about his stint in the public service and what made him decide he'd like to move into politics. Good morning. It's 9 o'clock. Let's take a look at traffic.
Spice up your life.
Right, taking a look at what's going on right now on the roads. On Thika Road, it's unfortunately a mess. It's an every Monday kind of thing. All the way from Safari Park Hotel, still moving very, very slowly. We thought it was getting better, but still not the case. You're going to have to really take it easy there. Of course, everybody's using their fog lights this morning because all the way headed to Roiro, and that's inward bound, there is quite low fog, and this affects Mombasa Road, it affects Thika Road, Kangunda Road, and even further. So everybody's asked to be very, very careful this morning because it is still quite low. All right, coming off of Langata Road and Ngong Road, not so bad this morning. Getting into other parts of the city, it's all right. Mombasa Road still giving a bit of a headache, but we'll see what that looks like in about half an hour. Spice FMKE is how you can let us know what you see on Twitter. Jogo Road also giving off some bad vibes, so please exercise some patience as well.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur,
Professor
the
James
man in the
Olekiapi
chair,
with us
seasoned
in
journalist,
studio.
newshound, a man
decided, look, I've got to take a stab at the presidency because I think the way the politics of this country is being run is wrong, and I want to change it. And I want to tell the people what's happening and what's wrong. How many votes did you end up getting in 2013?
I don't know.
Oh,
do you know why?
Right,
I know.
Because there's a reason.
No, I'll tell you why.
Yes.
The reason was that actually we didn't have much of resources. I'm just telling you.
Right.
I mean, even though I made an appeal to Kenyans and say, make your contribution, this is all about you. Don't see it in terms of about Kiapi. But that is new to Kenyans. The mentality in Kenya is that if you are Mheshimiwa,
you're the one who gives us.
It's you who gives.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep.
And so we didn't have enough resources in terms of deploying what you call agents to count for you. So what we have is official IEBC data. And IEBC data, for all intents and purposes, my votes could have been used to fill other people's votes. So, in fact, a young man called me, again, I will not mention the county, and say, sir, your votes are being counted in favor of so and so, and there's nothing we can do. So I said, okay, let them do whatever they want.
Right.
So I think for me, we really, really need a culture of honesty. All this business about BPI and the rest of it is a nation that has allowed dishonesty to take root. Because honesty is about what you do when no one else is seeing what you are doing. It's like you are in the office, and that's actually my definition of integrity. What you do when no one is watching you.
These are things, though, in terms of what then needs to happen for there to be a turnaround in this country. These are things that are not tangible. You can say there's a plan, there's a policy, follow. What can we do to get to that point?
What we can do, what we can do is, my appeal now goes to the professional class. We do have what we call a critical mass of well-aware and well-educated and Kenyans, because leadership has to be provided. The masses need leadership. even at the grassroots, whether you're talking about a village, many of us have come from villages. Whether we went to universities within or outside, we come from somewhere. If we can have a critical mass of us supporting an idea because it is novel, rather than because of what I can get from it. It is love for country, and it has to come from a critical mass of people saying, this is enough is enough, we're gonna change things.
You're
and
assuming
then
that just
you
because-
rally around, and you don't have a perfect candidate all the time. Sometimes you may have to rally for one who is less than perfect, but represents those transformational ideas that we feel can take the country a little further. And then it is those incremental changes, if implemented, that can bring overall change over time. But as long as you're going in a circuitous manner, you take 2 steps forward and then 3 backwards, you remain at the same spot, and effectively you're going back, because poverty levels in this country are not declining. They're still deeply right there. And a lot of social economic issues need to be addressed. And you cannot address them by being peripheral and dealing with them at the surface. You need to dig deep. Government too needs to really put the best foot forward. Kenya has the best. You can get them in Europe. You can get them in America, wherever they are. Call them if those that are inside are not good enough. Call those Kenyans wherever they are. Bring them in their
That sounds
diaspora.
very idealistic.
It is not. It is so practical. Let me give you.
Where are those?
Let
where
me give
are
you
those
an example.
professionals?
Let
Why
me give
are
you
the
an
professionals not participating?
Let me
in
give
this
you an
profession?
example. You know why I like a little bit about what's happening in South Africa? All this xenophobia thing notwithstanding. The other day, you have the courageous, young people like Malema, who can say this anything, and he can say, "Mama, tell us what we need to do.
Yep.
Give us a signal." Where are the Malemas of Kenya? Where is that? Where are those courageous young people who will say, we are, advancing an ideal, whatever it's worth?
In your opinion, what ideal is Malema advocating for, Professor?
No, I am talking about you need disruptors. You need the system to be disrupted. You need people who can bring a different view. And as I said, if we put different voices in, I can tell you, when I run again, because I am going to do, it's not if, it's when. When I run again, the run will be different from the first one. For the simple reason that Kenyans now know there's a man called Kiapi.
Yeah.
Wherever I go, they still recognize me. But when I was coming into the field, there was, of course, that underwhelming aspect of who the heck is this guy? But now they know. And Kenyans are also beginning to go beyond what they hear. And they begin to say, what is in this for us? And I think even beyond idealism, let's just come to the practical aspects. Why don't we just ask very simple question? What is in this for the people? Let me give you an example. Now, the big deal right now is about BBI. And BBI, apart from these other small social issues that we need to address, the main thrust of it is to change the constitution to create more position of prime minister, maybe to a couple, 1 or 2 deputies, and then you have maybe 5 or 6 people at the top. Let me ask you, what is in that for the people? How will the fact that you have 5 or 6 people leading the country at the top executive level change the governance in the country right now? How?
Many questions to ask us.
So I think for me, that's I don't allow myself to just be to flow with the wind, because flowing, if you just go with the wind, is the way to deny who we are and what we can do.
So, Prof, you're saying you will run again for president?
I will.
Why not go to the MP like you wanted to initially?
I can also run for that. There's no problem. For me, it is not a matter of high position. It's a matter of giving service to the people of Kenya. The reason I
to-
wanted
but
to
you've
run
got-
for
you've got to
president,
decide, yeah,
the reason
strategically.
I wanted to run for president was not merely because I was looking for a job to be an MP or a governor.
You were looking to make a change.
I already had a big job as a permanent secretary.
Yep.
I was looking into a place where I can have the greatest impact for the entire country.
And must you be in an electable position to be able to do this?
No, that's why I'm a professor right now. You've not even asked me where I've been. I went back to teach, and I'm teaching young people because I have no time to waste waiting for 3 or 4 years to run again. I must keep working. I must keep doing something.
Impacting.
Yes.
Thank you very much. We'll invite you again to come and let's discuss more.
Let's talk more.
To expound on this issue.
As things unfold.
Yes.
Yeah.
Professor James Olikiyapi,
Thank you
very much
for inviting me.
Asante sana for joining us. Thank you for all the words that you've given us. Of course, your experience as well working in public service, your experience firsthand in dealing with the politics of this country and how the politics shapes up. Of course, it's always important to hear it from the other side, somebody who's touched it and heard it. Thank you very much also for tuning in. This is The Situation Room. It's Kenya's biggest conversation. This conversation continues also on our social media platforms, Spice FM KE on Facebook and Twitter. Up next, we have the Makongeni member of the County Assembly in Nairobi. This is Peter Imwatok. This is the man who's given a motion for the impeachment of Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko. 11 minutes after 9.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah.
You're listening to Spice FM.
All right, 19 degrees currently in Nairobi, mostly cloudy conditions, highs of 27 today. In Nakuru, 17 degrees, 28 degrees, the high, partly cloudy conditions as well. A warm day in Mombasa at 29 degrees, highs of 33 and lows of 27. In Eldoret, partly cloudy conditions, rain expected later on with highs of 27 and lows of 14. In Kisumu, rain expected later as well, partly cloudy conditions currently at 23 degrees with a high of 31 and a low of 21. In Malindi at 30 degrees, a warm day expected with highs of 33 and lows of 27, partly cloudy conditions currently. Rain expected later in Nyeri with highs of 27 and lows of 15, partly cloudy conditions currently at 19 degrees. Further afield in Kampala, 22 degrees, rain expected later, highs of 29 and lows of 20. In Dar es Salaam at 29 degrees, highs of 33 and lows of 27 with rain expected later. Rounding things up in Johannesburg, where we see partly cloudy conditions currently at 13 degrees with highs of 23 and lows of 11.
Breathing life into the 90s. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent
When
talk
we say
every
this is
morning.
Kenya's Big
Right.
90.0,
94.4 Spice FM,
Nyeri
Nairobi.
90.9, Malindi 97.7. Also live streaming on our digital platforms www.spicefm.co.ke, Spice FM KE on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Now, constitutionally, this position is actually called county representative. This is the member of the county assembly. These are the people who are supposed to be the ones who are putting the county government into check and balance. Mm-hmm. Now, the county assembly of Nairobi last week took in notice of motion. And this notice of motion is to get rid of the governor of Nairobi County. The man who took it to the floor of the assembly, of course, is the MCA for Makongeni. He's also the whip of the minority. He's in the studio now with us on the hot seat. Peter Imotok, karibu sana.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us.
Good.
This was a bold one that you took. Of course, we were seeing it over time, attempts here and there, getting some signatures in support of this. And then finally we saw that it was going to come up to the assembly on Thursday. There was a lot of back and forth, meetings here and there, night meetings, early morning meetings. And then we finally saw you actually go and move in that motion. Why is it that you've decided that this is the best time to take this action against the governor?
Thank you, Latif, for inviting me to the Situation Room. As you put it well, my name is Imotok Peter. I represent Makongeni. I want to distinguish myself between being the minority chief whip and a member representing the people of Makongeni. Because the preamble of our constitution is very clear that the sovereignty of the people is vested and exercised by the people themselves or delegated to us who are elected. And I want to take this opportunity in Situation Room to say I'm doing this on behalf of the people who elected me to that house for a second time running, despite being a minority in my own ward. So personally, some people want to bring this as a kind of, I have a personal issue with Governor Sonko. I'm just doing my duty that I swore to uphold in the Constitution when I swore for the second time being the member of County Assembly for Nairobi. And it's been a challenge, yes, for many people to have a belief that somebody somewhere can stand up and stand out against all that's taking place in Nairobi. Look at Nairobi. I was born here. I've seen Nairobi from the days of the city council. I was the first pioneer MCS to be the county assembly in 2013 when the evolution began. I'm now running my second term in the county assembly. I know where we were before. I know where we are now, but I'm not certain about the future of this county. That's why I said, as much as we may pretend all is well, all is not well. And by the way, there is a perception that it's about Imotok. It's not about Imotok. It's about 122 men and women. The people of Nairobi granted them opportunity to exercise their power. So it's not about me. And more importantly, it's about 4.5 million daytime who live in Nairobi at night, and about 5.5 who live in Nairobi daytime. So it's about Nairobi. It's about a situation that we see we cannot keep quiet any longer. And you can remember, I've been on this for the last 2 years, that there is a problem in Nairobi. People don't want to face it. There's inability to give guidance. There's that inconsistency, incoherence in service delivery. So we are saying, as much as we pretend that we just want to make years pass, years never reverse. It can't be. When I was elected, I was 29 years, my first term. Now I'm going to 40s, my second term. So we cannot pretend and say, let's wait. Until when?
Time waits for no man.
Waits for no man.
During your first term, we had a different governor.
Yes.
So are you saying, do I hear you right to say that even during that term, you raised some issues?
I raised some issues throughout my life. I've always raised issues when it's wrong. I brag myself, not brag. I put myself in a situation, I'm a Seventh-day Adventist. I don't lie. I don't go with the ESC. In fact, most people are saying now, Imotok, do you have particulars of this impeachment? I say, yes, with evidence. I have particulars of impeachment. Yeah. So
moving forward, on what grounds now are you calling for impeachment?
That's a conversation that I need to unpackage when the speaker gives directives tomorrow on how to dispense of this motion, because it's not good also to canvass what I'm going to unpackage on that day.
No, in the media. Yes, that we understand. But if indeed you raised issues during the previous term of the previous governor, did you also raise issues of impeachment with the previous governor?
Yes, an impeachment was raised.
Yes.
It's not about only Imotok to raise. I remember during that time, Governor Kidero's impeachment was raised by one Nyangwara from Viwandani. And it was dispensed of in assembly, not in the media. So even this one, I believe now it's my time to raise it so that it can be dispensed of in assembly.
In the assembly.
Yes.
Okay. Now, of course, you said there are issues in Nairobi, and in the previous administration, the current, in quotes, administration, what are the problems?
These are the worst, I can tell you for free.
What are the problems in Nairobi?
You live in Nairobi, my sister.
I do.
Look at Nairobi. Just go around Nairobi and just look at Nairobi, the situation it is in terms of environment, service delivery. Look at in terms of security in Nairobi. look in terms of human resource aspect in the county itself. You see in the media on a daily basis, you can see this CC has been reshuffled, this chief officer has been fired on social media, this officer has been fired through Facebook.
County secretary.
The county secretary. Now, for the first time in 2 years, we have more than 4 county secretaries.
Yeah.
The entire CCs are acting. We call it acting county. So there's no coherence service delivery in terms of human resource. You know, if you don't have a human resource that does not believe tomorrow they are waking up for a job, do you have services really?
So essentially you're saying that the CEO of the county is incompetent?
Extremely, without mincing my words.
Okay.
And I'll expound out when time comes for the motion plan package.
Let's look at the politics of this.
Yep.
So just before you moved your motion, your notice of motion in the assembly, we also saw statements coming in from your party leadership. This is the Nairobi ODM chairman saying this is the position of the party. We are not going to be part of this motion. And then we also see the party leader, the national party leader, Raila Odinga, saying, look, the members of the county assembly have blessings to do as they deem is necessary for the dispensing of their duties. What kind of politics is this that's playing around this particular issue? And why should we see this kind of politics, even beyond this opposition party, even in the ruling party itself? We see a lot of back and forth, leadership of the assembly. Why is it that politics has sort of external forces appear to be the ones who are controlling what's happening in the assembly?
It's like the same question Latifah was asked yesterday, that do you have the support of your party leader on this? And I said, even when I moved the notice of motion, I was very categorical that I, Peter Imwatok, the MCA for Makongeni, not the chief whip of the party, am moving that motion on my capacity as a member representing a distinct ward. And yes, there were conflicting communication which came. As a whip speaking on the platform, I stayed as a leader in the county assembly. I received communication to the party from the Secretary General in most cases.
Yep.
And by the way, the clarity that the Secretary General put was not that the party leader is supporting the motion himself as a person. What he said, the communication of the party, if the party leader ought to communicate anything contrary to what the assembly is doing, he uses the party Secretary General. In that platform, we believe that as a motion brought by a member cannot be hoodwinked by a party, by anyone else. That's what we are saying. The fight on corruption, for instance. I'm giving an example of our immediate former president, that's Mwai Kibaki. You remember when he got an accident, he had a limping limb when he was... At a time, even his aide could walk almost seemingly like him. Now, in this country, we must also take a cue that the president has said no to corruption.
Yep.
The Right Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga has said there's no corruption. So we do not sit down and wait again for his command that fight this corruption. Us as the aides, me as the aide of Raila Amolo Odinga, at any given time he has said there's no corruption. I will not wait for him to say, now, Imwatok, start fighting corruption. I've taken the cue. The president has said there's no corruption. I have taken the cue. My march is very categorical. I step where I stepped.
Right.
And that's what we are saying. Bringing this motion, there is no personal vendetta. It's about a call to duty. And a call to duty to me is to tell Nairobians, this is the man on Facebook. I want to unpackage that Mr. Good thing. That Kenya's Nairobi losing billions of money in the premise of, I'm fighting cartels. I'm fighting the corrupt. While the master of the cartels and corrupt is the same man saying, I'm fighting the corrupt. So it's a fact. So my party is steadfast in fighting corruption. They have never wavered. And by the way, for the country to fight corruption, it's been ODM under the stewardship of one Raila Amolo Odinga who has kept on saying this country is losing a lot in terms of corruption. You remember a story about when Jacom went somewhere and an engineer was having a house and they said, this one, I was given 50%, this one. That's exactly what's happening in Nairobi County.
The governor of Nairobi, when faced with these allegations of corruption, has always said that corruption will fight back. That these are cartels.
Fighting back.
That's a narrative.
These are cartels also being used by his political enemies to fight back and to ensure that he gets out of office so that the gravy train that was there before in the previous administration can continue.
Where does the cartel come from, Latif? From when you change 4 county secretaries in a span of 2 years?
It's
where does the cartel come from when you change the CC for finance for 2 years? You have 4 CC of finance, each on acting capacity. Where is the cartel coming from? Like the current CC county secretary who's 3 days in office. Remember, he was fired on social media. And the governor was swearing, literally swearing, I will not return this man Mungu Moja.
On social
now,
media.
as we are speaking, the same guy the governor was firing on social media, crying loud his name, is now the head of public service. How will other civil servants feel? Where is the fight against corruption here? This is a fallacy.
So, but is it anything unconstitutional or illegal?
It's unconstitutional. The human resource manual is very clear. There are functions that are distinct for the governor. He can fire the CCs. But when it reaches a point of the chief officers, the directors, and other subordinate staff, there's a process. Because we must also accept that in this country, we have laws. But are we following them? Is firing somebody by a WhatsApp a legitimate way of firing somebody? There's a due process. If you want to fire a chief officer, is being employed by the Public Service Board, the County Public Service Board. Yep. They have manual on which he can be disciplined.
And the county has a Public Service Board.
It has.
So why is it that they haven't waded into this conversation?
They can't, because the tyranny of the guy, he cannot listen. You know, sometimes, Latif, just listening is an answer. Even just keeping quiet is an answer.
So the County Public Service Board is in office.
It's in office.
And what is happening to its officers is unprocedural.
Unprocedural.
But the County Public Service Board has not raised an issue.
They have never raised an issue.
All right. Now, the County Assembly also, until last week on Thursday, we have not seen you as the Assembly raising issues with what has been happening in the executive.
By the way, Latif, maybe you're not on the news. I've been always there as a leader of opposition and also a member of Makongeni. I've always said, number one, let's go to the history. When the Supreme Court gave advice on March 2018, I was the first one on this same studio, KTN, big story, who gave Sonko 14 days to nominate a governor subject to the Supreme advice.
A deputy.
The deputy governor.
The deputy governor.
Yes.
Up to date. Now there's in a hurry to nominate a deputy governor. For information, remember this. I've been in election 3 times. For a vacancy of a position of any elected position to be a vacancy, it must be degazetted. Today I also question Chebukati, the IBC chairman. At what point has he degazetted one Paul Kapigade? Because the constitution is very clear. The county government is very clear. A deputy governor or a governor has to resign to the speaker of the county assembly. But if I want to challenge you today to give me a letter written by Paul Kapigade, did he resign to who? The question again, when did Chebukati receive a notification from the Speaker of Nairobi, one Beatrice Elachi, of the resignation of one Paul Kapigade and degazette the vacancy? Now what
we are hearing you say is that there's a problem with process, especially when we're looking at the county.
I'm actually hearing him saying that Paul Kapigade is the deputy governor of Nairobi.
Still the deputy governor of Nairobi. So there is a deputy governor as we speak, as far as you're concerned?
Because the public has not been notified legally. A gazette notice, a notification to the public that this person now is no longer what?
Yes, it's a required legal process.
It's a required legal process. That's why you see, if it's illegal, you have a corregenda law. You see? But in the situation of Nairobi, it's unique.
When you raised this issue in the county assembly, soon after the advisory of the Supreme Court, you did not talk about Polycarp still being the deputy governor.
We spoke about this.
You were giving the governor 14 days to nominate a deputy, which means that you had also accepted that there was no deputy governor.
No, after a period of time, we agreed the Supreme Court has said, governor himself has pronounced, but the processes follow-up were not followed up. Look at this situation. Miguna was nominated. And I said on the same studio, I said, these are illegality. And the speaker we did not reject Miguna as an assembly. It was returned to the governor to forward the name with the particulars of one, Miguna. Because he knew very well Miguna is a persona non grata in this country. So we cannot
pretend. Is Miguna really persona non grata in this country?
As it is by that time. Even now. As he
Where is he?
Where is he?
Where is he?
I'm not sure.
He's only saying
don't know if he's still in there.
I last heard he was in Germany. Yes.
Frankfurt somewhere last time.
He's organizing and mobilizing. Yes. Yeah. So Latif, critically, when looking at the county government of Nairobi, we can't afford to keep quiet.
But these are people. These are people who run the process, right?
Yes.
So at the end of the day, are we saying then that the people then need to be removed?
Not necessarily to be removed, but also to be aligned to the law, because we cannot be a country. If you read the Treaty of Westphalia of 1648, that envision a state. A state has things that we must adhere to. The rule of law is key. We cannot pretend today I come up as Imwatok on your studio and say now this show must come to an end because I've said. There must be legal processes to the Gazette, the registration of this show, what from the National Communication Authority. There must be a process in everything. Because by the time you do a process, you can also align what you want to inject in. Yeah.
Is there any kind of legitimacy in the claims that, yes, the governor is fighting the cartels, and that is one thing that can be seen as, the fight against corruption? Is there legitimacy in that?
I can tell you, and I was challenging people yesterday, that I would want to see this process of impeaching one Mike Mbuvi Sonko come to a conclusion on that particular day, the speaker giving it tomorrow, how we dispense of, so that I can unpackage this thing called fighting cartels. It's a fallacy. There is no fighting cartel.
There's no fighting cartels, or there are no cartels?
There are cartels, yes, and I can say authoritatively, the leader of the cartel is the same person pretending to be
fighting the cartels.
And I can I'll unpackage that.
Peter Imotok is the MCA for Makongeni. He's the man who's given a notice of motion for impeachment of Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko from Nairobi. We continue with this conversation. Let's take a short break at 9:30. Take a look at traffic. Good morning.
Thank you.
All right, drive with caution on Thika Road this morning. The excavation work currently ongoing at the footbridge is going to make sure that you move a lot slowly. So Thika Road this morning, still why we're seeing that we have so much traffic is that the construction has begun on the footbridges, and so that affects traffic. Waiaki Way, a little bit crazy right now, coming through to Westlands roundabout is not going as smoothly as you'd like, but that'll open up in just a short while. Officially out of traffic hour. The fog on Thika Road headed towards Thika actually, so please be cautious when driving. This is outbound on Thika Road today. Apart from that, looking much better on Mombasa Road, coming off of Langata Road and Gong Road as well is not so bad. Entering into the CBD, remember that the southern and eastern bypasses have been very good today, being able to use those. So
breathing life into the 90s. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself.
Telling us about your push and clamor to get the impeachment of Nairobi Governor Mike Mbuvi Sonko going through. So, of course, it's coming up in the Assembly tomorrow. And this is when the Speaker will give directions on what happens next, right?
Yes.
And this is when you expect now to start telling us the counts. But what was it that you said when you're giving your motion? What are the counts for seeking to impeach him?
We are saying the motion is not it's not expounded when you give a motion. You give
a notice,
a notice that I'm going to move a motion based on the constitutionality, article this, county government this, standing order number this. And I'm looking forward to expound on the issue of corruption. I'm looking to expound on the issue of direct interest, conflict of interest, interfering with procurement processes. I'm looking forward to look at the integrity, Chapter 6 of the Constitution. I'm looking to how you've demeaned the office of the governor as per the Integrity Act. These are the issues that are erased in a nutshell, in a notice of motion. You read the Constitution, Article 181 of the Constitution, in the County Government, Section 33, it speaks about particulars of the impeachment. Now that's evidence-based. What are you evidencing before the Assembly? When you talk about the governor has breached Chapter 6 of the Constitution on integrity, what are you talking about? What are you seeing? What are you trying to unpackage before Nairobians and before the Assembly? When you talk about conflict of interest in terms of procurement processes, where are you talking about? When it comes of indecisiveness, incompetency, what are you talking about? That's the time now. The motion is not expansive. But now when you go to particulars, because I have 3 hours to execute this before the Assembly, then we can execute properly.
How many MCAs are standing behind you on this?
There are enough MCAs, I can guarantee you. It's just because Nairobi has been created to a situation, fears the order of the day. But speaking, a few can speak. But I can tell you when it's your time to execute the vote, Nairobi will be shocked.
People are going to vote for this.
People are going to vote.
Also, there's
without conscience.
The whole issue of the national politics coming into play. The Tanga Kieleweke. the ODM and the handshake coming in. Do you see yourself gathering those numbers?
I agree. The handshake must play a key role in fighting corruption. And I'm not aware at any given time handshake playing a key role in dissuading anyone from fighting corruption. And maybe the handshake can only come in when we want to put more power to fight corruption. And when I'm packaging this, I don't see the handshake coming to stop the fight against corruption. And at times when we are moving this, there's some slight tanga issues trying to come in, but we stood firm. We stood firm.
Is this anyway a political platform for you as well? Putting this motion
not
across?
I don't believe so, because
or launch pad.
Yesterday I was challenging some guys. I may even challenge Mike Mbuvi Sonko to stop the shenanigans I'm seeing all over in hotels, threatening calls to people, to members of the county assembly, and I even challenge him. I may even execute it and maybe resign from being an MCA.
So this is conscience. Right. So this is about conscience, and this is about the people of Nairobi, purely and nothing for you politically.
Purely conscience. Purely conscience. I can tell you for free. Purely conscience.
So they
know my history since I became a member of county assembly. Yeah, it's purely conscience.
The games that are being played, that you've actually said, they are high stakes political games. Meetings taking place in hotels. There are people who are erstwhile supporting you now not picking your calls, right? So when you look at this playing out, aren't you feeling that I may not actually get through with this particular motion?
I can tell you for free, those are just people speaking. All members of county assembly call me. Yesterday I slept past 2 a.m. After the meetings called by the same governor and his people, they called me, Imotok, we are there. We've been given this. We are even aware we've been given affidavit to sign to recount our signatures. But you see, we can't do this in public. We are just waiting that moment. And that moment is not about when, it's about days and time now. Nairobians will really see, because looking at Nairobi critically, are we in the right path?
Are you saying that people, well, let me start. You seem to have hinted at these meetings doing what the political landscape Kenya is actually famous for. Envelopes being passed. Okay? So are we saying that we've got to a point in our history where these envelopes no longer have any impact?
I'm seeing that situation developing slowly by slowly. That as much as you give an envelope to somebody, there are some people who still have conscience with them. Yes, they may take your envelope, but be careful. You might lose an envelope with what you wanted.
So people are eating, but still...
Perfectly.
That's not a conscience person. That's not.
But you see,
somebody deciding to eat.
Somebody's still eating and deciding to do whatever they want to do.
It's strategic. Yes. If somebody decides they want to offer you money, take it.
Why?
Where is he getting that money from?
So why take it?
Well, why take it? I mean, if it's a matter
personally, I've never.
No, but if it's a matter of conscience, then you wouldn't touch that money at all.
For me,
because you know the intention.
I'm speaking for me. You've just asked me a question we've had about these people.
Yes.
I cannot whip 122 grown-up men and women that wherever you go somewhere, don't do this.
No, that you cannot do.
I cannot do. But for me, as Imwatok, I have never been approached on that platform. Neither will I accept that platform.
Let me tell you where I'm going with my questioning. Yes. If indeed you see that move, then do you see a situation where around the country other MCAs may follow that path that you follow? Because Kiambu seem to have led the pack.
Of course.
In this instance. There have been other cases, of course, in Taita Taveta, but in this instance where you have a watertight case, do you see instances of this increasing, and do you see the possibility of high-ranking officials like governors not only being taken to the court of impeachment, if I may call it that, but actually losing their jobs?
There's something also clarity I need to get to the public, that a county assembly does not impeach a governor.
What do you do?
We recommend the impeachment of the governor to the Senate. We resolve.
And at what point is your recommendation taken seriously?
Right now, at a point we take a vote, which will be given a directive tomorrow by the Speaker, how to dispense of this motion. When we vote, when we get the numbers required, the Speaker has to present the article of impeachment now to the governor, the proposed article of impeachment. Now, that's why you see in the Constitution, I don't get where people get this. In the County Government Act and the Standing Orders, there is nowhere it says the governor should appear before the County Assembly.
He doesn't have to.
He doesn't appear. He only appears before the Senate.
So he doesn't have any space to...
He has no space. There's no legality, the legal backing at this assembly level, because it's an purely oversight role.
And it's a recommendation that
it's a recommendation to the Senate.
Now, in Kiambu, we saw the kind of shenanigans and the games that were played there. In terms of numbers not being present in the assembly. People missing for whatever reason or the other. If we see the kind of thing happening again in Nairobi, because, I mean, we've seen Nairobi and how it votes before. What's the likelihood? Now, this is you now using your conscience and being very, very open and sincere. What's the likelihood of you getting 122 members in the assembly on the day, even if they're going to vote against you?
You know, every member of county assembly out of 85 wards in Nairobi, they have their beliefs. And my belief is I will go to unpackage this story. After that, everyone will go back to his own self-conscience. Are we doing the right thing that we saw in this assembly? Did we do what the Wanjiku wanted of us? Or did we do what I wanted of me? Therefore, for me, the worry is not about do we have the numbers on that day. The worry is, am I unpackaging the right thing to these honorable members? Are they going to conceptualize it and make it a reality on behalf of the people of Nairobi who elected them? So for me, these are politics in play. I cannot avoid them to be played. Mine is to play my politics of consciousness that the right thing for Nairobi is this. But I have no option of failure in this.
You're going for it full throttle.
Full throttle.
You're saying that this is going to go through.
It will.
Now, there are, of course, very many accusations that have been made, even without going into unpacking your own motion, the kind of thing that you have raised issues against or about in the assembly. Give us a couple of them in terms of how the county government has been running in terms from the executive side.
We've just said one of the things that I'm keen looking, I don't want to go deep into it, that there is no consistency in terms of service delivery in the county. All the county projects we purport to see on social media are not realism on the ground. That
we have a stadium that we have seen.
I will unpackage the issue. In that motion, you can see there's an issue of a stadium. I'll unpackage it, what it really means, what the monster is. I'll unpackage
we have
it.
also seen Nairobi rehabilitation taking place.
It's perfect.
Roads being constructed.
What we are saying, if you read the history of Colombia, how Colombia operates, there's a government. Inside the government, there's a semi-government. Now, that's the thing we need to unpackage. Not what you are seeing on social media, we're shown on social media. Not what we see on Facebook. It's practicality. How did this stadium came to be? Is it as it is? Is it value for money?
What's the story of the stadium?
It will be unpackaged on that day.
No.
There's a lot of unpackaging that needs to be done tomorrow, but I think there's some details that we can be privy to.
Just a hint for you about stadium.
Yes.
Look at this. This is a project which is very important for us as Nairobians. As a sportsman, I'm a footballer. I'm the chair of all sports assemblies in Kenya, in East Africa. I'm a footballer. Okay? This is the most important facility in the county government of Nairobi. It was a noble agenda for the sportsmen and ladies of this country. But unfortunately, corruption entered it and vested interest. Up to date, are you aware there were supposed to be 4 stadiums?
In Nairobi?
In one tender. Are you aware that out of those 4, only 1 started and it has never gotten finished? Are you aware what was constructed on site is not what we procure as a county?
Let's start from here.
So these are things.
When this matter was conceptualized that we're going to do stadium, was it brought to the assembly?
Now that's the question. In assembly, in terms of development, there's a CIDP, County Integrated Development Plan. Every year you must develop called ADP, Annual Development Plans. Look at the CIDP. Do we have this project?
Do you?
Yes.
So it was there?
Yes.
So it's
for
there.
5 years plan,
there.
CIDP.
Yes.
They are there. But on that financial year ADP, do we have those projects? No.
So why are they not in those projects?
Purposely, it is framed for a particular shaped interest, not for the interest of making this stadium serve the interest of sportsmen.
Who passes and approves the budget?
We pass approve a budget.
This is the county assembly.
Yes.
So when the county assembly is looking at the CIDP,
yes,
and then looking at the ADP and
yes,
looking at the budget that is presented to it,
yes,
what role does the county assembly have to ensure that what is in the plan is
comes out in the budget?
Coming up in the budget.
Exactly. Now that's what we are doing now. I'm doing my oversight role currently. That what I approved as a member of Makongeni in the county assembly in terms of CIDP, in terms of ADP of financial year 2018-2019, it is not what is being put on the ground.
Meaning that you're saying there's a disconnect between
the actual,
what the plan initially was envisioned,
and what's actual now.
And when the budget is passed by the assembly, why does it get passed?
It's passed because there are timelines in budget preparation. Like the current financial budget, we're starting on this February.
Yes.
It's a process. We must look at the ADP. ADP must be an extract from the CIDP. Then we go into sector departmental budgets. Then we go to sub-county budgets, county assembly budget. It's a process. That's why you are saying, at what point did this process miss the link? Because in the Constitution,
that's
it requires
I'm
a governor.
That question of
it
the
says,
assembly.
The Constitution says, the governor shall. The word shall is mandatory. Chair a CC committee meeting which makes policies and ratifies policies of a county government to implement it.
So why was this
so
not
at a
raised
time you as a governor,
time?
you chair a CC. You chair a CC committee meeting which does not ratify what the county assembly has passed. Are you doing illegality or illegality?
All right. It's 14 minutes to 10 o'clock. This is a situation. I'm going to open up the phone lines now. You can talk to MCA Peter Imwatok, 0719-012-600.
Online, mobile, and on radio. Twitter at SpiceFMKE. .1 Spice FM, Kisi. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Out in Nairobi at the county assembly. Peter Imwatok, the man who has moved a notice of motion to impeach the governor, is in the studio with us. He's the MCA for Makongeni Ward, and we are talking about that. We're talking about some of the things that the assembly has ratified, which have and has passed, which have not been ratified by the executive, or vice versa. And you've gotten to a point now. This is the time that you've chosen to bring the issues to a head and say that you'd like, because of these particular issues, let's impeach the governor. So I'm asking, for the last, since 2017, the assembly has been going about the motions, and we have not seen the assembly raising issues or even refusing to approve a budget for the county executive up to now. Why?
Can I ask a different question to tag on to that? At what point will the county assembly not approve a budget?
There are reasons as to why the county assembly can refuse to pass a budget. Currently, we have a supplementary budget before the assembly, but as the side of the opposition side, we stood firm and said the supplementary budget before the county assembly is about the pending bills. And we are saying, number one, before we approve this supplementary budget for the pending bills, can you show us the PLO Lumumba report that the public paid for almost 1 year coming up with the report? We've never seen as an assembly.
What is the PLO Lumumba report?
You remember when Governor Sonko was sworn in, he said he's forming a task force to look on all the pending bills. The PLO was nominated as a chair and a few members. They sat for 1 year coming up with a report, up to date. Nairobians have forgotten even there is that report
on pending bills.
On pending bills. The OIG the Auditor General's office produced another report on the pending bills of the county government of Nairobi. But on the same platform, there are selective payment of pending bills vested on interest, specifically on law firms, where we are going to unpackage on that day. Which are these law firms? Vis-a-vis the common Mwananchi, common Wanjiku, that mother who went to borrow money from Asako to do business with the county government. So we are saying, as an assembly, first of all, we want to see a roadmap. The president gave executive orders, all the pending bills to be cleared. Currently, I can tell you for free, the CC for finance, the chief officer of finance, who is a doctor by profession, last week but one, was being evicted by a class 2 dropout, who is not a county official employee, simply because he has refused to pay the interest vis-a-vis the masses who are the Wanjikus.
Right. Let's go to the phone lines. Zachary is calling in from Nakuru. Good morning, Zachary.
Oh, morning, guys.
Morning.
This morning you deserve an award.
Kabisa. Only one.
Awards, so many awards.
Zachary, so long as the award isn't a basket of locusts.
You can choose the award in this case.
You know, you look at all things from a pedagogical angle.
Yes, Zachary, speak to...
Now, this is the point. Right from the first guest that we had, this guy was the senator.
Yes.
Coming to Mr. Kiapi, now coming to that guy who is in the studio. You are bringing the guys who are talking the voice of the people. That is the common monarchy, yeah? And that is very good. And let me tell you, there is this lady, the one famous lady, when the bulletins always started with the word mtukufu rais, juu alikuwa akafanya nini. There was this lady who was regularly mentioned, Anna Kibaijuka. I don't know whether he was something a rapporteur, UN rapporteur, those funny names, yeah? And once he visited a slum, and she said what, made her surprised was not the poverty that beholds those people, but it is the mindset that those people, they want, that poverty as an apathy to attract apathy, okay? And therefore, they felt good in that poverty, so that when a certain celebrity comes from the US, he has to be taken to that slum, okay? To benchmark how poverty behaves and how people poverty, that kind of mindset. Do you see? Now, let me tell you, I'm happy that we have people like that gentleman now who is talking, yeah?
Thank you.
And I pray that he is going to be saved because he is fighting a Korosa, Is it a Korosa? Mwalimu shall tell you when I'm off, yeah? A Korosa, that's this big gorilla there, who can also fight back. And he's voicing, he is vocalizing our anger and our concern as Nairobians, okay?
Right. The anger of the people.
Definitely. Let me say this, yeah? Even though I'm in Nakuru, yeah? But where I come from, my constituency, the president is my constituency mate, okay? And if I do not work, I do not expect Mr. Uhuru or his family to come and bring things to me to make it ready. Do you understand? So the idea is tell every Kenyan to work and to have the courage to fight for the tax that I'm paying. I must see the results.
To do what is right. Thank you, Zachary.
Yeah.
Thank you, Zachary.
And have a nice day.
You
Thanks,
too.
Zachary. You too.
0719-012-600. Basically, he's telling you all the best. Godspeed. You're fighting Goliath.
Yeah.
Do you see yourself as David?
I don't see so. Maybe God knows.
Let me ask a different question.
Yes.
If in your efforts to suggest that there should be an impeachment process should begin for the county.
It has begun.
It has begun.
Yep.
If it's concluded by you, if it doesn't go the way you anticipate, what will you do?
I'll be a proud man. I've done my part. Yeah.
So you will not pick up another battle and start again?
I'll be a very proud man. And if another battle envision itself that I know my conscience can go for it, I'll go for it.
There will be, of course, people who will say that you have an axe to grind against, and I'm sure we'll hear it, against the governor.
They always say that.
They always say that. Yeah. And they will also say that you are following the party lines of your leader, who may also have again a grudge against the governor.
Or that you're aligning yourself for the upcoming, what we call circus in politics, and that you're looking for a position that you would like to place yourself squarely in. These are things that are going to come out.
Of course, they are coming
Okay.
up. That's why I've challenged the governor.
People are already saying.
That's why I've challenged him already.
So now, what would you have to say about that?
That's what I'm saying. I've always challenged him. Allow this process to come to that level. If you feel what I'm saying is lies, I may even decide to resign as an MCA, because what I'm saying are facts. And I want to challenge the honorable members of the County Assembly, even with the Senate, that this country cannot continue in that manner, that what we see is not what's happening. Yeah.
Some have argued, even it's some of them are even pushing for it in the BBI, that let Nairobi just revert to the national government.
Perfect.
Let it be run by national government.
Perfect.
So you think that's better? You think the people of Makongeni don't deserve you as a representative?
No. You know what the BBI, the small hint I have about Nairobi, Nairobi is a seat of power. It's a capital city of Kenya with a GDP of 63 plus. If you go to the modern world, a capital city is a seat of a government of the day. We will prefer, even me, I'll prefer this capital city under metropolis. But the role of representation must remain. Look at Kampala City.
So we go to Kampala City, assembly.
We have Kampala City, we have the mayor of the Kampala City. We have the minister of the Kampala City. And then we have the CEO of the Kampala City. And then we have councillors of the Kampala City. If we can borrow the same leaf, because let me be very honest with you, as the chair of all sports in Kenya, I've shared with many government staffs and MCS. We developed a 47 clique of monsters who don't believe in the rule of law. And some of them, they're equating even themselves the power of the president. They have never even taken time. They have never taken time to read their role well in the constitution. They are not presidents. They are CEOs of the county. So, Lati, for me, I believe Nairobi, we must rethink our structure. Not on vested interest. I'm aware also some people are saying, because of this, I don't want this to happen because I have interest. No, we can't put our interest first vis-a-vis where the seat of power sits.
I'd be very interested to know, of course, you've talked about packaging a lot of these things when then you get before the speaker at the time that you will. But were you as vocal when you saw things going wrong within the county? Were you as vocal without, of course, this opportunity for the motion of impeachment? Were you as vocal at that time?
By the way, you must know that I'm the first person who took Governor Sonko to court on the issue of insurance for the staffs of the county assembly, of the county government. I have never, not about vocality, it's about facts of vocality. Am I vocal on lies, or do I have facts that I speak about? I remember I've been.
So that's a yes.
Yes, I've been having facts and I've spoken throughout. To an extent, it's been now being I'm the master of cartels. The issue here is when you speak the facts as they are and you put the evidence based. A point reached, I wrote myself a 3-page letter to governor asking on pertinent issues. This and this and this are happening under your watch, under Article 35 of the Constitution, the right to information, as a governor, that you're the CEO of this county, kindly furnish me with this, if you're aware. At the time we went on the media, it started in St. Stephen on Labor Day. You remember he said, there's an MCA who's a cartel here. I'll ask you guys to have signatures to remove from the office.
That was you.
Yeah. You read the letter I've sent to you. You don't go on media. You know, there's a narrative Governor Sonko tries to create every then is Mr. Angel and other people are dirty.
Everybody else is dirty.
Everybody's dirty. That's what you want to unpackage.